Hey everyone, and welcome to the show. I'm James, that's Katie, and of course, that makes this episode 32 of Circles and Squares. And Kate, happy E3, we're finally here. We've been spending the better part of our whole week watching all these presentations. How you been so far? How you liking
Well, I mean, I'm just gonna get it out of the way now. But we saw Elden Ring, and if you guys remember the predictions, I predicted Elden Ring would not be here. I had gone hollow. I had accepted that, we were never gonna see it. But man, did they put out a cool trailer.
It's here, and the funny thing about it too is you didn't even have to wait for it. Like, it was
Yeah.
legitimately in the first day, like back at oopening night live.
Well, you know what? I don't think Jeff Keighley could have waited any longer on it. I think it was coming out that day no matter what.
100%. But yeah, we've taken in a lot of the E3 stuff going forward. We're actually recording this a little bit early. We got Nintendo still to look forward to tomorrow, but we'll be breaking all the E3 stuff down that's happened over the last week. In the second half of today's show, again, when we're joined, as we mentioned last time, by our friends at Loud Thumbs, which is a really good podcast you guys should check out. And we've got the link, of course, in the description of the episode. But our friends Nick and Josh from the show will be joining us for the second half to talk about everything we saw at E3 and break it all down. But before we get to that part of the show, of course, we still have to open up with the games we've been playing over the last couple of weeks. And I would like to start off this week, Kate, because I have played the first little bit and gotten into Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. And, this has been a very anticipated game, both for, PlayStation fans and just video games in general, I think. It's one of those big premier next-gen games that we've seen, and it has lived up to my expectations and then some. I gotta say, this game has really just blown me away so far. I won't get too far into it. I'm still working my way through, and I really want to go deeper into it next episode when we have a bit more free time. We're not so caught up with the E3 goings on, but just on a surface level, this game is so fast. Like the combat is so hectic. You're constantly switching between guns. I mean, collecting the bolts, everything flying around on the screen. There's just so many effects. It's like visual eye candy. And I mean, it's just a blast, I would imagine, to watch or to play
Yeah.
I just can't put it down.
But at the same time, to go along with that, it's so fluid and very clear as well. And I think that's really important. Like when you go through one of the portals, for example, it's seamless to
Mm-hmm.
transition from like where you were previously to now where you are in terms of the game. And like I feel like if it didn't run like picture perfect, it would be very disorienting, especially with how like you said, it's very intense. There's a lot of things going on at any given time. There's a lot of very bright, bold colors. Um, but it's done so well and the presentation's so fantastic that it is not overwhelming to play.
Yeah, that's just it. I think that it takes a high level of skill to make a game like this that has so much going on and make it still so understandable for the player. And you're 100% right about it. And especially with the shifting of the dimensions, like you're going through portals quite often, and it's kind of a way to traverse the map. But there's also a lot of sections where you're actually changing between two. It's a little bit confusing. Like some of the portals like just move you around the stages, but other ones actually flip you to a whole nother dimension, kind of like a light and dark world kind of setup. And
Mm-hmm.
you're doing that frequently to the point where a lot of these levels that you're in and planets that you're on are actually, they're not like two, I don't want to say they're two different stages because some of the sections are a lot smaller than others, but they're a lot larger than they initially appear sometimes because of the way you can switch between each of the two worlds. And it actually really adds to the complexity of a lot of the traversal as well. Like you'll have to go up to a certain platform and change dimensions, and then suddenly there's a grind rail that's back in the other dimension, so you can grind to a new area and then flip it back, and all of a sudden you're in a place where you previously couldn't access by doing it like through the different dimension portals. So yeah, it's a whole nother layer of complexity, and I think it's a perfect way to expand the Ratchet and Clank franchise, because the game is very true to its PS2 roots. Like there's maybe if there's one criticism of the game that I could give it, is it is maybe a little bit safe in terms of what we've seen from Ratchet and Clank in the past. This is very similar to the same format you'll have seen in any of the original kind of trilogy games and whatnot, but it's just turned up to that 11 on the dial, and really all out, and I would say nearly perfect at everything it tries to do, honestly, in terms of being a Ratchet and Clank game. Yeah, I mean, I just don't have enough good things to say about it. There's other things like it's a pretty funny game, and a lot of the weapons are really cool. They've also tried to do a lot more with the story this time around, and flesh out the characters a little bit as much as you can flesh out kind of these more mascot platformer kind of characters. So I appreciate that a lot. I'll probably talk a lot more about it next time on the show. But I just really wanted to get my initial opinion out there and just glow about this game a little bit on the podcast because I've literally been sitting in all my free time the last 3 days or so I've had it now. And I mean, this has just absorbed my free time and I can't put it down. So 100% recommend it. I hope you get to play it sooner than later. I know you checked a little bit out with me, but yeah.
That's awesome. I'm just so glad the game's living up to the expectations because I know it was one of those ones where they were set very high, and it's great that it's at least meeting them, if not succeeding them.
Always a good feeling. And between this and when I talked about It Takes Two on the show last time, I feel like I've gotten all of a sudden 2 very strong contenders for my game of the year. And I think right now, I mean, I don't like to ever crown these things too early, and especially like even after you beat a game, you always like to let it sit in your mind for a little bit before announcing like, this is my favorite game ever. Like you really got to simmer on those kind of things. And this is definitely not my favorite game ever or anything, but I think if I had to say right now, it's probably my favorite game I've played to this point this year. So we'll see if that changes. You never know. Could be better, could be worse, but it's a great game. Check it out if you get the chance, and I'll talk more about it on the next episode. But the other thing we've been playing this week, and we had a really good time with as well, was our PS Plus game for June 2021, which of course was Operation Tango. We decided to play this one together. Usually we'd pick one game each, but this is a co-op game, and it's actually really fortunate, I think, Kate, is that this game actually came out this month on PS Plus because we just finished playing through the It Takes Two franchise, which is a 2-player game, which is kind of asymmetric puzzles working together, kind of like the escape room setup and helping each other, giving clues and going through. And this game is kind of similar to that, but it's very, I would say just a more maybe polished version of what we were looking for out of something like that.
Yeah, and it was kind of interesting too because I feel like they both kind of have a similar premise in the sense of like you can only play it co-op. You're both kind of in a different area or environment, and you're giving each other information to solve puzzles. And so it's kind of a similar elevator pitch, but I feel like they both took very different approaches to that style of game. And so it's interesting to compare because I think this game was similar in the way that it did have some areas where you're just sort of, dropped in different environments. One person's kind of the agent who's going in and either, taking down a bomb that's going to explode or infiltrating some place. So they're like, the guy in the scene, and the second person's sort of like the guy in the van. You've got the intel, you're going in and cracking codes, and you're in like more of an internet sort of styled interface. And so it does the similar things to the We Were Here franchise where, you're kind of explaining to each other what you're looking at. You've got an environment or a lot of information to sort through and see how you can proceed. But then I'd say about the other half of the game feels like a lot more kind of like quick fire mini games that you work through together. So it was kind of nice to have like another sort of style added to this that sort of like, just kind of made the pace go a little bit quicker at times, which was nice.
That was one of my main points that I had about this. And just to clarify something, I think I said It Takes Two before, didn't I? I meant We Were Here.
You did. We Were Here.
Thank you for catching it.
Too many co-op games recently.
Yeah, right. Too many games in general watching all this E3 stuff. But yeah, We Were Here, not It Takes Two. But yeah, the pace of the game, that's one of the main points I really had thought about what I wanted to talk about on the show here today is just how quick the game goes, because I think one of the strengths of this game is that well, I wouldn't say any of the puzzles are overly complicated or difficult in terms of figuring out the logic behind them. What I like about it is they move past you at a really quick clip for the most part. So if you're doing a game or a puzzle that you're not so much enjoying, which there's not too many of those to be honest, but you're through them pretty fast, and then also because you're completing puzzles and little tasks so quickly, you'll be, okay, I need the agent will be inside a house or a building and say, okay, I need a passcode for this door. Then the hacker goes on the computer, finds the passcode, and then right back to the agent, they got something to do, and then they get some information for the hacker and send it back. And you're constantly exchanging, both people are constantly engaged, and you're completing assignments at a relatively fast pace, which just makes you feel smart and like you're really progressing, which I appreciate a lot. Because sometimes if you get hung up on some of these puzzles for a long time, or it takes you a lot of like, oh, like what was that information? What are we looking for? You kind of ruin that momentum for yourself, and you begin to feel like, am I just stupid, or or is this too hard for me? But realistically, like the pace of this, I think is one of its biggest strengths.
I agree. And I think what ties in nicely with the pacing as well is the presentation is really good. It's really got that kind of like almost kind of like slightly goofy over the top kind of like spy aesthetic to it. And it's kind of got like a future tech aspect to it as well. And so a lot of the trappings really neat. Like you kind of got these like VR goggles that can do various different things and show you like what's behind a door, or it's got a lot of like when you're the hacker guy, you're going through these like almost like kind of like Digimon style mainframes and
Hmm.
stuff. And so you're doing these puzzles or you're solving these things, but with the framing, it's got a really neat aesthetic. And then also it does a really good job of giving you like a bit of pressure. So for example, it's like, oh, the bomb's gonna go off in 3 minutes, so you have to solve it quickly. And the puzzle you have is perfectly doable within those 3 minutes, but it just gives you that little bit extra of like, okay, we've got to do this. There's like some stakes involved. And I feel like you just get into a little bit more than some of the other puzzle games that tend to be a little bit slow or a little bit like I've kind of wandered around for a little bit and I don't know what to do. Like this constantly is like keeping the pace going and encouraging you to be really fast onto the next puzzle or the next section.
Right. Yeah. And it really does a good job of that. Like we just been saying, and also I think, like you mentioned before too, it's very well stylized, very visually pleasing. Both the characters, it's kind of got this red and blue aesthetic. And both characters kind of have an interface. So as the hacker, you're in this blue, yeah, Digimon-esque digital mainframe kind of look, and as the agent, you're wearing the VR goggles, and you've kind of got a red HUD around the outsides, and sometimes the hacker can send you information and it'll pop up on the side of your screen, and there's puzzles and locks you need to do together, so both people are working together on like a. I mean, some of them are more reflex based even than puzzles. In terms of like, there's that one game where the hacker's placing, or the agent's on a computer and is placing little squares on this cyber, I don't even know what, like cyber walkway that the hackers kind of traveling through, and having to walk past these obstacles which the agent can't see, and so you're having to communicate, okay, I need to go left 3 spaces and then up as quick as you can, and placing the tiles is almost more of an action sequence than it is a puzzle in some ways anyway, but it does a good job of making you work both independently and separately, and it's just so visually pleasing. And I the other thing I like too is with the story. It's kind of presented as very nice, aesthetically pleasing comic panels in between each of the missions, and it's kind of like reminiscent of the old Sly Cooper games, or at least that's what it made me think of. But I like storytelling in that way. It's nice because it can move around. It's a little bit animated. Some effects and some narration and whatnot, but it's better than having maybe some lower quality actual like models of characters standing in a room and talking. I'd rather have something presented like this in more of a visually flashy way, even if it has a little bit less actual animation.
Yeah, I think so. And I think you make do with the resources you have, right? And the other thing that I really liked about it is it was very easy to change roles. So I think what we had done is to get a good sense of what each character's like, because their playstyle is quite different. We swap between every mission, and it makes it really easy to do so versus um, the We Were Here franchise. If you wanted to swap, you had to kind of back out and go back in and like reload the game. And also it wasn't necessarily like segmented into missions or sections, so it wasn't clear like when would be a good time to pause and to take a break. But this one had like clearly defined missions that were all like quite unique from each other. Even if some of the mini games were similar, some of the puzzle solving did show up in multiple places, it still was nice that each one felt like quite distinct to play. And I think that just again added into the idea of the pacing and the presentation. And I think it's a really clever game, and I think the whole is stronger than any of the sum of its parts. But at the same time, there were genuinely some like puzzles and games that stood out as being really fun.
Yeah. I definitely think that if we're pulling the comparison to We Were Here, I think overall We Were Here maybe had some higher highs in terms of the complexity of the puzzles, but the pacing and presentation of this game is, definitely more appealing for what that's trying to go for in that kind of way. So I mean, they're both good experiences, I think, and I think overall, like, this kind of 2-person required co-op puzzle kind of work together communication based games, whatever genre you want to, it's a subsection of puzzle genre game basically, right? But I think it's quickly becoming one of my favorite types of games to play, if for nothing else other than the social aspect, to be honest.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like I'm so excited to see these coming out, and I really hope we get to play more, and I would love to even make it like a little small section on the show, like we'll go through all of them and have this big comparison maybe someday, like,
Big old tier list.
Yeah, big old tier list of our co-op games.
And also shout out to the Tom Morello reference within the game. I can't have to mention that, the guitarist for Rage Against the Machine. That's just super cool. They threw it in. There's a lot of times you're going through, databases of people's names or different initials of people and whatnot. So pick that one out. I'm sure there's probably a ton of references to other games or pop culture and whatnot in there. So that's another thing we didn't touch on either yet, is like the humor of the game. I think some of the jokes they make are kind of one-off, offhanded one-line type of jokes, but they really hit sometimes, and I appreciated just that little extra flavor in the game and the characterization of it. But yeah, I mean, I don't think I have too much more else to say about it, other than I think this is a really good PS Plus offering. Like, honestly, getting this game on PS Plus is a great service. I think is well worth the money if you wanted to buy it elsewhere as well. I don't know actually what other platforms it's on. I think it's probably
it's on Steam, at least, for sure. But yeah, I think this is like, I think it's like $20 normally. I would say it's definitely worth that price. I would have bought it and played it through with a friend or whatever quite happily. But like, yeah, getting on PS Plus was fantastic.
Well, I think that's going to wrap us up on I keep calling it Project Tango. It's Operation Tango, folks. Operation Tango. But I think that's going to do us for what we've been playing this week, because after the break, we're going to be joined again by our special guests, Nick and Josh of Loud Thumbs, to break down all of the E3 2021 information and games we've taken in over the last few days. So sit tight, don't go anywhere, and we'll be right back. All right, everyone, welcome back to the second part of today's show. And yes, it is finally time to talk about E3 for 2021. We spent hours and hours watching these conferences, a lot of cool news, so we're excited to break it down. And as we mentioned at the top of the show, Kate, we are not alone. We're joined by our friends Nick and Josh from the Loud Thumbs podcast. Guys, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having us.
The unanimous response means you guys are excited. I can tell.
Yes, we can tell they're we can tell you're professionals.
This is good. Hey, for anyone that's not heard of you guys before, what's the quick elevator pitch on your guys' show?
You want me to take this one, Josh?
Yeah, go for it.
Well, Josh and I are cousins, so just so that's out there, people know that. That's how we've known each other for quite some time. And essentially, we're both just very passionate about video games. Both of us grown up with Nintendo. There is a bit of an age gap between the two of us, but pretty much similar vibes on games. Overall, PlayStation fans, which hence, why we're here with you guys, the Circles and Squares. Game console of choice is definitely PlayStation right now. And we just like bringing, good conversation, games, entertainment with television, movies. They'll kind of trickle in there as well, but mostly game related. And we just like to have a good time and bring the love of video games to more people out there and just have a good time with it, because that's what games are all about.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's so aligned with like what we try and do on our show as well. So I think this is going to be a good match for this E3 breakdown. It was a pleasure to have you guys here, and it's always exciting to have. We had one guest previously on another show, but it's kind of our first time, for listeners of our podcast collaborating with another show. So that's exciting, and we're really happy to have you guys here to talk about all this fun news. So
Yeah.
let's break down kind of what this is going to look like here. So we have a lot of news to go through, guys. As everyone knows, E3 is a crazy time for anyone who follows the games industry. So we've kind of decided to break it down and really go through the major stuff first, and then hopefully clean up smaller news at the end. So just for those of you listening out there, we're going to go through some of the main conferences, which are Summer Games Fest Kickoff Live, Ubisoft, Microsoft and Bethesda, Square and Nintendo, go through the major announcements from there and anything else that stood out to us each personally. And then at the end, if we have some time, we're going to go through some shout outs from the smaller conferences and anything left remaining. So guys, just before we get into breaking anything down though, I just want to get a quick temperature check from everyone as to how you felt overall about all this E3 content. Where's your hype level at? How are you feeling about the E3 season as in general? Maybe give me a quick 20 seconds, just how you're feeling. Josh, let's start with you.
I think it's been pretty good overall. I haven't been able to watch it consecutively. I've had kind of an odd weekend, so I've been kind of like cramming it in for the past couple of days. But overall, it's some highs, some lows. I notice there's a lot of re-releases of older games, which I think is kind of neat. But there's been a couple high points for me for sure.
Yeah, I can agree with that for sure. How about you, Nick?
It would have been hype 1000 if we would have had some PlayStation going on this last few days. But considering they just decided to keep, lips closed for right now, I would say I'm a good 80, 90. This is a good B to B plus show that we just had. I really enjoyed it. A lot of good stuff.
Kate?
I mean, we saw Elden Ring. Like, what more do you want?
Somehow I knew.
Yeah, overall, I think for how it had to be organized with online conferences, I think they did a pretty decent job. I think there was definitely a lot of filler and a lot of stuff we've seen before. But some of the shows, especially Xbox and Ubisoft and some of the bigger places, I think really had fantastic conferences, all things considered. So I'm just, I'm always excited about E3 season, and I mean, we started it off day one, best conference I've ever seen in my entire life. What more could you ask for?
How could it get any better? Right. Yeah, I'm right there with you guys. I think it's been definitely ups and downs. I think there's been some high highs and definitely some lower lows. And like you said, Nick, I definitely agree. Like, it's a bummer not to have PlayStation here. Would have been nice to obviously have them have some kind of presentation, especially for us being a PlayStation focused show. But we play a lot of other games too, so it's still been a lot of fun overall for me. So with that, guys, let's get into Summer Games Fest Kickoff Live. Of course, this was Jeff Keighley's big opening show to kind of kick off the week's festivities, and you could just tell his excitement on his face from the very start, especially when he was about to introduce the brand new Elden Ring trailer, which is the first thing we got to talk about. And the game was revealed. I mean, I think we already knew it was kind of an open world setup, but it's confirmed now. And I think they said there was 6 different biomes, and you can do them in any different order. It just seems to be the next evolution of what kind of the Souls genre is turning into. So I want to start it off with you, Kate. I know you have a lot of thoughts on this. What are you thinking?
I do. Well, I think first I should shout out back. We said Jeff Keighley's excitement. I watched that trailer 10 times on the first day it came out. And every time I made sure to watch it with Jeff in the beginning, because you can just see like the massive grin on his face. It's the most wholesome thing, how excited he was and how hard it was just hold it in. But the trailer was amazing. It blew me away. It exceeded my expectations. I think the open world is a really cool idea. But I like that they are keeping it really true to kind of the Soul style. So just even with the trailer and reading some interviews that Miyazaki's done since the trailer came out, it is, they care about player flexibility and they want you to be exploring and discovering this world for yourself, but they're still telling their story in the same FromSoft way of, very cryptic kind of little hints here and there, and they want you to put the story together. So you're going to kind of just be exploring this world and like you taking a little bit more direction, but it's still going to feel like a FromSoft game. So I think that's just the perfect way to evolve the series. It looks like very Dark Souls inspired, but they've brought in a lot of the mobility options from Sekiro, and it just seems like they've taken everything they've learned in the past and really just channeled it into like their most ambitious project. And oh, I'm so excited. Everything that trailer was just like bragging about how cool it's gonna be.
Yeah, this
Well,
one's I'm pretty excited about as well. I like From Software games a lot as well. I'm a little bit I've been neglecting it a little bit because I haven't got Sekiro yet. I'm slacking just a little bit, and I've only made it probably about halfway through Bloodborne, I think. So I need to catch up a little bit, but this game looks really cool. Like Kate said, there was some obvious parallels in the style with Dark Souls, which makes me very excited. I was very excited to hear that it's open world, which is both exciting and terrifying because things that definitely randomly killed me at random turns in any of the Souls games. But I have no doubt it's going to be great. They haven't made a bad game yet.
yeah, and I think for me it was the real pull, a draw for this one was the fact of an open world, because I do have Sekiro. That is my first Souls game that I am going through right now, and that is more drawn me in because of the lore, with Japanese culture and all of that. I really enjoy that. But open world, I like a lot of open world, almost anything. So to do this open world, I just think that's almost like a genre on top of genre now. And how they're going to do that is going to be really fun to see. And I'm excited too. I haven't been this excited. This will probably be a day one purchase for any sort of Souls like for me. Typically, that's a like wait and just watch it, see how bad it is, if it's going to be in my realm or not. But I think this one I'll push through. It's exciting.
Yeah, it is, and I like the influence on the open world, especially like you guys are mentioning, and I kind of brings me to a question about like how I'm thinking about this game is just maybe the one iffy thing I have to think about it, which of course like they have a great track record. They haven't really made any bad games, and they're very high quality, like the bar they've set for themselves. But I'm just wondering maybe a little bit of like these games are so meticulously crafted and go for such a specific feeling. I wonder if maybe making it bigger and open world is maybe going to lose a little bit of that specific crafting sense you get from playing a lot of these games and how everything's just so intentional. I don't think it's going to be a problem because they're just so amazing at making these worlds. But
so that was originally the one thing I was a little concerned about as well. But Miyazaki's done some interviews and he said that while the biomes are really big, you do go into sort of more like dungeon style. Is kind of what they're calling them, is dungeons, and those areas are more in the scale of like the levels from previous games. So those
Okay.
ones kind of have that sort of like looping in level design where you get your bonfire and you get a little bit further and then you get a kind of a shortcut that leads back to that bonfire and then you can go down the next little path, and there's still a lot of exploring and they're still kind of open to usually like a few different routes to take, but much more linear in design. So there are going to be sections where it's like that, but it's kind of those are linked together in this massive open world, and how you choose to tackle them and what order you take them in is kind of where more of the freedom comes into it. So it's sort of got I think taking the best of both worlds. And that I like a lot because open world I find can be intimidating, whereas their level design is obviously like one of the big things that people tout about Dark Souls. So I think that they've quelled that concern, and I just full steam ahead just want to play this game.
there you go. See, this is why we keep you around, Kate. You know all the answers about Dark Souls and all this stuff. It's perfect. It's perfect. Let's move along, guys. Though we do have other things to talk about. Surprisingly, the next big thing, I guess, from this show was the announcement of Tiny Tina's Wonderland, and this is interesting to me a little bit just because I have played Borderlands 1 and 2. I really enjoyed them. I haven't got around to 3 yet, but I think the universe they build is really interesting and kind of has. It's one of the few places where a lot of the humor in the games actually hits for me, and I find humor is tough to do in games, so this one should be interesting. It's billed as a standalone game. It's not actually the same in mechanics as Borderlands either, from what they seem to tell, and maybe moving a bit away from the traditional format might interest some people. I don't know how Borderlands fans would feel about it, but spin-off stuff is always interesting for a big franchise such as Borderlands. Is anyone here a really big fan of the franchise? Any thoughts on Tiny Tina?
Yeah, I've been playing Borderlands since the first one. And Tiny Tina, I think she's a funny character. I'm a little bit nervous that she's getting her whole new game, but I mean, the writers have, in general, done a pretty great job. I think Borderlands 3 has had some more mediocre writing, but the first two were definitely great for sure. Um, all the art style is still there. Still looks really great from the trailer, and who knows what they're gonna do with this one? It seems highly inspired by the Borderlands 2 DLC, where Tiny Tina gets the whole crew together to play some D&D. So, kind of interested. I'm not quite sure where they're going with it just yet, but piqued my interest.
Yeah, that's actually what I did read a little bit up on this one because I was a little bit lost. Just been a while since I've seen her in a Borderlands game, but yeah, apparently she is like your dungeon master, and then the other characters, which like Andy Sandberg and Wanda Sykes, and
Will Arnett.
Will Arnett. Yeah, those characters I guess are like in the world doing basically what she says from the gist I get it. So I think that's a neat idea. So it's definitely something different outside of the Borderlands realm, but still at the same time I think fits.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring up that DLC as well, because you know what? Until that moment, I completely forgot about that. But you're right. I've actually played that Borderlands 2 DLC, and that was a lot of fun. Like the way she kind of narrated your D&D campaign. Anything like that would be pretty interesting, I think. Kate, any Borderlands thoughts? Tiny Tina?
Tiny Tina's a funny Borderlands thing for me because that DLC sounds so exciting, and I've gotten quite into D&D in the last couple years. So that DLC is kind of has been the draw to Borderlands for me. And I've kind of played maybe about half of 1 and half of 2 trying to make it to that DLC, and I haven't got there yet. Because I just keep falling off of them. I think they're great games, but I'm the looter shooter isn't really my genre of choice. But my boyfriend's a really big Borderlands guy, and we're kind of in the middle of playing too. It's been a while since we've played, but I think maybe this will give us the motivation to get back into it so we can make it to Tiny Tina's, which is the part I actually really want to play. So yeah, this looks really cool. I'm into it.
All right, well, let's move to our last, I guess, quote-unquote major announcement from Summer Game Fest Kickoff Live, which was the Death Stranding's Director's Cut is coming to PlayStation 5. In a weird way, they said the full reveal is, quote, weeks away, which is interesting. If it's only a few weeks, why not just give us a date? But I guess that's the way it is. The interesting part about this reveal, though, was that it seemed to contain a few Metal Gear references, maybe with some Metal Gear-esque music, and there was a cardboard box in the trailer, which was, always fun to throw people off, especially with Kojima behind the franchise. So, I mean, personally, I know me and Kate have not played Death Stranding. It's one of the PlayStation exclusives that's kind of missed our radar up to this point. But Nick and Josh, have you guys played Death Stranding? Any thoughts on the director's cut? Will the PS5 version maybe bring you in? What are your thoughts?
That's exactly what I have down here. So it's I think it's time for me to play this game now because it's like you just said, one of the exclusives that I have not played yet. And why not do it now with everything it's going to give us? And I kind of like the little bit of tease they gave us. Looks like it's going to be some interior levels, which I understand the game doesn't really have very many of, if any at all. And the little poking fun that was happening with Metal Gear, I think that was like Hideo maybe saying like, okay, that's the past is behind us now, and I got something new to make in the future, and this I'll give you for right now, and we'll see what we make next. But I thought it looked amazing. Like the graphics looked amazing for sure. But I know it was just kind of like a little teaser and fun thing, nothing gameplay yet. But it's probably time I should check this game out.
Yeah, this one is one I've missed both in the original release and the presentation for, kind of because the first one, it had all this like weird hype around it. It was all like mysterious at the trailers and stuff. And it kind of, it had everyone's interest. But then it came out and I just heard really mixed reviews and I just kind of set it by the wayside and kind of just forgot about it. So I may have to look up this presentation that's going on this new, maybe something will make a difference for me.
Hey, it follows your dollar per hour, so there's like 100 and some hour game. So you got to buy it now.
The good old gaming value test.
That's right.
Per hour.
Who wouldn't pay $1 for an hour of entertainment?
Yeah,
that's a good question. Honestly, Kate, are you going to be jumping into Death Stranding Director's Cut, or what is this doing for you?
I don't know. Death Stranding I really wanted to get the PlayStation Death Stranding controller,
It was
That's not a
nice.
good. Yeah, that's not a great recommendation for the game, if that's what I have to say about it. I think Death Stranding's cool. I think it's really interesting as an art piece, and so I almost kind of want to play it just for like how weird and ambitious it was. But I also just don't really see myself getting absorbed into it. So I'm kind of curious about what's going to be different about the director's cut, and I really thought the trailer was cute. So it's definitely a game like I enjoy knowing about it, and I loved watching the trailers when it was coming out, and I think it's a game I'm interested in conceptually, but I don't know if it's gonna make it to the top of my list to play.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you there too. I know, and I feel kind of this pull of obligation to check it out at some point just because of the podcast. But I mean, I have this pull in me to kind of go back and replay Metal Gear. It's one of the franchises I have never really had too much experience with. So I feel like if I was going to jump into a Kojima game, I'd probably start with the Metal Gear franchise and maybe work my way up to this later. So we'll see though. I mean, you never know. I think that's the major stuff from this conference, though, guys. Is there anything else that you guys would like to shout out, maybe personally from that we saw opening Kickoff Live or anything like that? Nick?
You really touched on all of them, honestly. Elden Ring, that was a dead giveaway for pretty much anybody who watched Games Fest. They're like, okay, that's it. It doesn't get any better. Millions and millions of people were just done. That was the biggest by far Jeff Keighley mic drop in the history. So I think that one's huge, even for me, honestly. Just to circle back to it, because I've just started the Souls-like genre, trying to play through them, and with the George R.R. Martin possibly being a little bit of a tie-in for me to kind of pull me a little harder into it. We're big Game of Thrones fans here at the house, and I know he's not like super involved with it, but I feel like that game, with just a little bit of involvement from him and a little bit of direction, could pull me in a little bit more as well, because I really like that sort of stuff. And I think I could die a lot and still continue to be okay.
That's a guarantee.
Yes.
Yeah, Elden Ring's the big one, and I think that's a good point. I'm glad you brought up George, because we haven't even spoken about him yet, but that's obviously like a big draw to the game too, and he's a fantastic author, and apparently their collaboration went really seamlessly, and they worked really well together. He helped design, I think, some of the backstories for some of the bosses, so that's really cool. The other game I wanted to shout out, and this is great if you're looking for more Souls-like game, is we got Salt and Sacrifice, which is a sequel to Salt and Sanctuary, which is kind of like a 2D Souls-like game, very heavily inspired by Dark Souls. But what's neat about this one is you can actually play it all co-op. So my boyfriend and I played it together. We had a great time playing co-op, but the way that you did it in the first one was kind of like sort of weird and janky, and it was kind of more like one person was the main character and you just got to pull someone else in to play through with you. So it looks like this sequel just kind of it's more of the same, but they've implemented the co-op a little bit more seamlessly. So I've got my eye on that one. It looks really good.
Yeah, the art style looks really cool. I've actually never heard of that until just now and had to look it up. It looks quite cool for a 2D like side scroller. I'm definitely interested. But yeah, I think my big one, just to echo, I guess everyone else, is Elden Ring, just because I haven't been a fan of their previous games. And open world Dark Souls sounds really cool and intimidating at the same time. But I'm ready.
Isn't that
I'm
the truth?
ready.
We're ready.
Yeah,
220 days, guys.
There you go. The only other
down.
one I wanted to shout out was Metal Slug Tactics, which we saw here. And I am a big fan of these tactics games. Final Fantasy Tactics Advance is something we've talked to death on the show. And I recently started playing Tactics Ogre. I just really like these turn-based, tactical RPGs, like Fire Emblem's another good one. So this is really interesting to me, especially since they announced it has maybe some roguelike elements. I think they mentioned in a press release afterward that there's skill trees involved, some kind of upgrades you can do to your characters, different things like that. So, and just with the art style of Metal Slug, I think it's always had a really attractive kind of retro pixely kind of look. So I'm excited to see them bring the franchise into a new genre rather than just the same old kind of run and gun shooter type of layout. So very much looking forward to that. personally. So
yeah, that was a good shout out. Like that one for me, honestly, I'd forgot about it until you mentioned that. And part of the reason was because I found out it's strictly on PC.
Oh, is it really?
So yeah, so I was a little bit bummed at that because I was hoping to be another one of them, like on Game Pass or one of them sort of deals. But
yeah, right.
It does look. You're absolutely right. Like it takes Metal Slug and goes, let's just flip it not upside down completely, but let's just flip it a little bit and just make it a new game. I mean but it looks great. It really does. The sprites that they have created and the look of the game, it just holds up so well.
Oh, totally. Yeah, they're masters of that kind of art style, and especially the trailer cut with those anime kind of cutscenes in between. Like, man, those were really
that was
nicely
awesome.
animated, very sharp, very, very sharp. Anyway, guys, let's move along to Ubisoft Forward, which is the next major event we had to enjoy this weekend. And the first big game being Rainbow Six Extraction. So we saw this game has been shown before, but we saw some gameplay of this one here. We had announced it's 1 to 3 players cooperative. It's PvE versus this infection. I forget what they named the enemies in that one actually, but it looked really cool. They looked almost like Venom from Marvel Universe or something like that. And they showed that there's going to be classes and stealth and different strategy involved. It's very much like a teamwork oriented game rather than action focused. But I personally found this one quite interesting, and especially up against stuff that was shown this weekend, like Back 4 Blood, which is seemingly more action focused, more Left 4 Dead. Like this kind of style of taking down monsters more as a team with cooperative mechanics, and communication that's necessary really seems interesting to me. So this might be the first Rainbow Six game that I check out, which is interesting because this is a long-running franchise. I don't know exactly what about this is drawing me in, but it kind of is. And I don't know if you guys have the same opinion. Maybe Kate, you want to go first?
Yeah, this actually looked interesting to me. The monsters really remind me of Resident Evil 7, like the kind of like black goopy monsters, and like the whole game just gave me really like Resident Evil vibes, which is kind of strange for Rainbow Six, but it looked pretty good. I think I'd be more likely to play it than the previous entries, even though those look like really good games. The PvE draws me in more so than the like online competitive shooter multiplayer. But for me, like I think this looks like a great game. It'll be kind of the like, if 2 people really want a third person, I will play with them. But shooters just aren't my biggest genre, I guess. But yeah, I like the Resident Evil vibes at least.
Yeah, this one seemed a little bit different from what they've done in the past, and I only vaguely know about the series. Like you said, James, it's been going for quite some time, and I've never really looked at it too terribly much. But the creatures remind me of like the Zerg from StarCraft because they move faster on their own material type. And then they move slower, and then vice versa for the players. So that's where I drew the parallels for the creatures.
You know what's a really great little reference too is when we were watching this trailer, since we've been playing Heroes of the Storm, and one of the characters like, oh, it looks like Creep, where they like one of the like,
exactly.
Yeah, one of those other characters puts like Creep down and they can like get stronger, and so like we had that same reference too, so that's good.
Yeah, like you said, Kate, the PvE is definitely more my style than PvP for online shooters. I'm pretty mediocre at them, so when I get online, I just get eaten alive by the people who actually play these games. So it has my interest far more than the other 5 that these games have.
Well, for me on the Extraction deal, like the biggest part of these games that kind of pushes me away is you have to work as a team. So if you're not playing with people or you're not in a group that you've established over time somehow from playing online, it can actually just be a major turnoff for the game. Like it's just no fun to play anymore because it's like people are just ruining the whole process. So these games don't draw me much because of that sheer. You have to have multiple people to play with you, and you gotta then it becomes almost like a chore. Like, okay, are you available to play tonight? Are you available to play tonight? And then you want to be able to play through the game and get through it. I would rather a game like this have an option where you get a couple bots on there with you, just to give someone, in a situation similar to mine or exactly as to mine, to be able to play the game on their own if they don't have a choice to play together with 3 people, or you don't want to play with a bunch of jerks online, because we know how that goes. But the PvE. I agree with you guys for sure. I would much rather play that than PvP. But getting into the game and playing through it, that's a big pushback for me. And I don't know much of the story on this one. I know in the previous games for Rainbow Six, before the most recent one, there was always some sort of story, similar to a Call of Duty, like you got to extract, high profile agents or something, or presidents and stuff out of buildings. You got to get in and do all that. That drew me in too, because I'm big on story stuff, and it really pushes me to keep playing. So the factor that you might run into a lot of problems trying to find a group of people, even 3 of them, which is a really sad fact, but still true. That just kind of pushes me off a little bit on this game, but not to say that it doesn't look bad. I'm sure it's going to be a fun game to play if you just get the group together and do it.
Yeah, it's kind of like a double-edged sword with those like really heavily focused multiplayer games, because like when you get the right group, there's some of the best gaming experiences. But if you don't have the right group, then yeah, you're toast.
Yeah, you've ruined the whole thing for you, and you feel like, why did I even spend money on this game?
Mm-hmm.
Right, that's the fear too, right? You'll buy the game, and then you'll have 2 friends that say they're going to buy it, and then all of a sudden one of them doesn't enjoy it too much, and you're stuck with a pair of people, and then you're looking for that third player all the time, and you run into that problem you're talking about, which is for sure, it could be an issue. Let's move along though. We got Far Cry 6 to talk about next, and this one, of course, showed the famous Giancarlo Esposito of Breaking Bad, and probably a bunch of other shows fame too, but we'll stick with Breaking Bad for now. And another interesting reveal about Far Cry 6 as well was that the Seasons Pass will include some kind of future content that allows you to play as old villains. So personally, I have no experience with Far Cry whatsoever. Seems like a cool thing for people that are fans of the old game though. Anyone here a big Far Cry fan?
Not a big one. I have played most of 5. I've not finished it. The only Far Cry I ever beat was Far Cry 2. So there's been several of them that I have not, but this one here has got me more intrigued, honestly, just because Giancarlo is in this thing. I mean, right. I think I just want to play it to, just like I watch a season of Better Call Saul or Breaking Bad, like you said, or even The Mandalorian. Like all of these shows, I watch him in, and I love him in them. So he's got me drawn in. Right there, like when they announced he was going to be the protagonist, I'm ready. Let's do this. Like I want to see what happens with this story. So this one's got me excited, more excited than I thought. And who else wants a cute little puppy on your side to distract enemies while you stab them in the throat?
Well, that's just it, right?
Yeah, that was my biggest takeaway too. Is, oh my god, that's Gus Fring. And now this is I'm not a Far Cry person, but I did look it up. That Gus Fring actor is in his 60s, and that blew me away because he does not look that old. He's like looking pretty good.
No, he's intimidating is what he looks.
He looks intimidating, yeah. But yeah, the Far Cry has always been those games that have been like on my to playlist, but never quite make it to the top. And then by the time I get around to them, there's a new one, and I just haven't bothered. But the playing as the villains, I think, is a really cool idea, because that's sort of what the series is known for. Like, all really the memorable characters are those villains, and they still, Far Cry 3 is still making the best villains of all time list, even to this day. So I think that's a really cool idea that they've made of sort of playing into that a little bit more.
Yeah, this is not a series I have any experience with, and I've seen a lot of trailers, and this is the only trailer that's really kind of piqued my interest at all, just because the characters seem so convincing in that trailer. But I don't know, I've seen like a little bit of gameplay and stuff. It just, I don't know, hasn't really drawn me in. I think I might wait to see more on this one.
Yeah, we're all kind of unanimous, I guess, there, except for Nick. So you'll have to come on the show next time and review it when the game comes out and let us know.
I would love to do that. Absolutely.
There you go. Listen, you heard it here first, folks. He's coming back. Anyway, the next game we had is a really big one, and unfortunately this got leaked a little bit before the presentation, but that of course was Mario plus Rabbids, A Spark of Hope. I think this would have been actually a pretty big surprise for people if this hadn't been leaked beforehand, but it's really nice to see a sequel, at least in my opinion, to Mario plus Rabbids. Never in my life did I expect that I would be interested in a Mario plus Rabbids video game, and when the first one came out, I can't believe how much I liked it, and actually how much challenge it had. It was a lot harder of a game. Like, not that it was tough, right? But it was definitely, some of the boss fights could have some challenge, and especially for something with Mario and Rabbids kind of branding, it was a lot more than you'd originally expect from something like that. So I'm really excited about the sequel. I can't wait to see what they do to make the combat a bit more complex or spice it up a little bit. I know there's another new character they kind of showed in the trailer as a bit of an antagonist, but I'm sure they'll join you eventually. There'll be other Rabbid forms, I'm sure. So I'm just really looking forward to see the evolution of this series. So it makes me want to go back and play that Donkey Kong DLC they had for the first one too, because I never did check that out. So maybe that's on my to-do list now. But yeah, anyone else looking forward to Mario and Rabbids?
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about this one. I have such a love-hate relationship with the first game because I do not like Rabbids. They just, it was just the weirdest thing when it came out, but the game was fantastic, and it was just a really well thought out game. It had a lot of really smart puzzle solving and the combinations of characters you could put together with like what kind of weapons you used in building your squad, and I really genuinely enjoyed it, and it had some clever boss fights, and like everything about the game was like way better than I had expectations for. So I'm glad it got it. I'm surprised it got a sequel because it was such a weird game to begin with, but it did well. It deserved a sequel. Luigi looks like he's got a bow now, which, you know, it'll always be my weapon of choice. So he's back on the team for sure. And, like,
Give the best character the best weapon, man.
exactly. He was a sniper
Yes,
last game.
Luigi. Yes, that's what I'm talking about.
Shout out to Luigi.
And shout out to Luigi.
And
He's
Gooigi
here.
too.
And yeah, Luigi's the best one. Gooigi's second. Rabid Luigi is by far the worst Luigi. In the Luigi tier list. Baby Luigi's in there too. He's okay. But yeah, I think that despite how I want this game to do, I think it's gonna be great, and I'll probably buy it.
It was such a weird game when it first came out because like no one asked for Rabbids to be introduced to Mario
Right?
or vice versa. And now they're making a sequel to a game that no one asked for, which is even more bizarre. But I haven't played it, but I have seen a little bit of it, and it was better than I expected.
Yeah, I think the shock value on it was definitely one of the best things it had going, because I think everyone's expectations must have been like, oh god, Rabbids, really? Like, why is this the thing? And then it was better than people thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the game like stood on its own. Like it didn't need Mario branding. Like it would have just been a good game on its own, but then like obviously the Mario is what got it, you know, people interested in the first place, and like it's good that they didn't just ride that train of just like, you know, people are going to pay attention because it's weird. Like they genuinely just made a really good tactics game.
Yeah, and Kate, you had said, you know, you have a love-hate relationship with the game. I have more of a hate-love relationship with the game. There's just more on it that I just couldn't get past with it. I think my brain went in the wrong way to start with it, kind of like when you start a movie and you're in a bad mood and you don't like it, and then you watch it again later when you're not in a bad mood and it's good. I think it was more of those moments.
You've already decided.
Yeah. I own it, you know, I have children, so, and, you know, not even my son finished this game, which kind of surprised me, but it's one of the ones I have thought about going back and trying again, because the first one just, maybe didn't hit me right. It is kind of a cult favorite anymore, really. It's really grown into something, like you said, nobody wanted, and now people want more of it. So I'm interested to see what this does. There are a couple of mechanics that I did see that they have changed, which is for the better for me. You don't have to do as much of the waiting to get to where you want to go. You can actually kind of go anywhere on the map and kind of fight anyone you want, similar to the 3D, the Mario 3D World map that they have. So that's cool. I like that idea to be able to like, oh, I want to go try and fight this person, and then you can just stop and go someplace else and fight somebody else if that's giving you a hard time or something along those lines. Because that was a lot of what I ran into, like you mentioned, James, where it's difficult. Like it's a hard game. You get into these boss levels and you get so close to defeating one of them, and then you die or you lose, you know, your move start over. Yeah, yes. It's a difficult game.
Not as easy as other Mario games, that's for sure. Although some of the Mario games are hard too. We shouldn't say that. So anyway, we got one more announcement to go through from Ubisoft, which of course was the last thing they showed. The long rumored Avatar game was finally shown. No gameplay, just a kind of a pretty trailer. I guess they're using the new Snowdrop engine to show off some of those graphics. So it's supposed to come out sometime next year. It feels like it's been forever since Avatar came out as a movie, and I know they have all these
Oh my gosh, yeah.
further sequels coming out at some point. So who knows? Maybe those are delayed too. I don't even know. But it just seems like Avatar, this game. I mean, maybe it'll be good, right? We really don't know, but it seems just like weird timing to show an Avatar game. Like who's talking about Avatar in 2021? I don't know, but yeah, it looked pretty. At least we'll have to wait and see more on that. But I don't know if any of you guys are big Avatar movie fans. Do those people even exist? I'm not sure.
I don't know
They
if there's
did
any
once
big
upon a
ones out
time.
there. They did, yeah, 10 years ago or 12
exactly.
roughly. But yeah, this is one I thought it looked really, really good. It was phenomenal is the word I would put on it, honestly, for an Avatar game. You have to put that on there because for a game that, once again, you didn't see coming and movies aren't around to support it, I do think it will coincide similar to what we discussed with Breath of the Wild 2 coming out with the Switch Pro. I see this game coming out when the movie releases, which is slated for 2022. So I think that's part of the process for Disney and Ubisoft to make this game hit real hard all at once. And I could see it doing that, especially if they do it open world, which we didn't get to see gameplay or anything like that. But to be able to fly, in the world, and it's just beautiful. I mean, it looked fantastic, all the colors and everything. And I could definitely see them doing a lot of sky battles. Maybe something like a Panzer Dragoon, kind of feel, because you're on like a flying dragon, more or less.
That would be pretty awesome.
I think it could be really good. I think that would be awesome. Yeah, if they put it on a rail or something to let you kind of control your character, even in the air, if there were modes or something to play in the sky, would be fun to be able to play in the sky alone. I think we need games that are like that a little bit more, especially fantastical games, and not just give me an air fighter or anything.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. No, I think one of the coolest parts is that the game probably looks as good as the movie did 12 years ago. So it's like if you watch the movie and then you move into the game, it's almost like a seamless thing. So because gaming and technology has advanced so much since then. So it's gonna be interesting for sure. This is another one I don't think anyone was really asking for, that someone decided to put a lot of time into to produce. It looked like it's quality. I'm interested to see more, but yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm probably in the same boat. It's like it's a tentative interest. They haven't really shown off or talked about gameplay at all, so there isn't really a lot to go off of. But it definitely looked gorgeous, and there is a lot of potential. I like the idea you mentioned of the air combat, and it's a really unique world. And if they take advantage of that, it has potential to be a really good game. But we'll just kind of wait and see where it goes.
Yeah, jury's always out until you see gameplay on these things anyway, so I'm sure we'll see some earlier next year. But before we move on from Ubisoft, guys, is there any last games that we didn't mention over these main few that you guys would like to shout out at all? Josh, let's start with you.
No, I think we covered the biggest parts, at least the things I remembered from the Ubisoft is one of the ones I was able to watch all the way through. Yeah, the Mario Rabbids one actually has my attention more, because I'm a big fan of like turn-based strategy games and stuff. So I'm interested to see where that goes.
Yeah, I want to just shout out Rocksmith Plus. I didn't play the original Rocksmith, and I'm not a musician myself, but I just think that the fact that game exists is so cool. And like, there was a period of time when I was in high school that I wanted to learn guitar, and took lessons for a brief period of time. And if something like Rocksmith had have existed, I think that would have been the coolest thing ever. So like, I'm glad to see that they've innovated on it, made a second one. I think that's like, what an amazing piece of software.
I definitely agree with you on the guitar thing. I did the exact same thing, quote unquote, played guitar for like 2 years during high school, fell off completely, but this would have done it for me too. Like, especially putting it in a game like that would be such a cool thing for people interested. So I agree, even though I won't be getting it, but yeah, it's cool.
Mine's gonna have to be just a nostalgia throwback that they are putting the Ninja Turtles in Brawlhalla. I'm just saying.
That art was nice
awesome
too.
Yeah, it was really good. So definitely a way to draw in some more Turtles fans, and I'm all about that. So let's go.
Especially leading up to that new Shredder beat 'em up or whatever. It's Legacy of Shredder. What's it called? That game looks kick ass anyway.
It really does.
But guys, it's time to talk about maybe the biggest, or maybe tied for the biggest conference we had at E3 this year, which of course was Xbox and Bethesda Games Showcase. Huge announcements coming out here, and what a power move for them, starting out with Todd Howard just coming out on stage. Very first thing you see at this showcase is like, yeah, Bethesda's here now. This is part of Xbox. Like, what a power move to start off.
What
with
what a flex.
It really
Showing
was.
Todd Howard off, got him all nice and pretty up on that stage.
yeah. And to continue flexing, the first thing they show, bam, right off the start, Starfield coming out, and they say explicitly exclusive to Xbox, because we've been wondering this forever. We've talked about it on the show before. Is you hear kind of things from both sides, like, oh man, are these the early games after the buyout of Bethesda going to be on multi-platform? They're going to be exclusive to Xbox, and you kind of heard people talk about things from different perspectives. But no, we have confirmation now. This is an Xbox exclusive. A huge win for Xbox, honestly, to have a game of this caliber, like standing on the same foundations as the Elder Scrolls and Fallout series. So that's a huge win for them. Coming out next year in November. Big open world space RPG. I think they said it's set only a few hundred years in the future too, so it's kind of somewhat grounded in our reality, but obviously fantastical as well. So this just looks like such an impressive game. I would have liked to maybe see a little bit more gameplay, but beggars can't be choosers. We still saw a reveal of an amazing game. I'd like to play Starfield for sure, but I'd like to get your guys' thoughts. Josh, what do you have to say about Starfield?
Yeah, I like a lot of sci-fi stuff, quite a bit, and just from that standpoint, it has my attention. I think a lot of the styling is really cool. Everything, all the ships and stuff look kind of like it was, Earth-based, if that makes sense. It doesn't look like it was some crazy future alien ship that they took off of Earth and designed that way. I think it looks really cool. I haven't seen too much on it except for the trailer during E3, but I'm interested for sure. It looks really cool.
Yeah, I would agree. I also kind of double back with what James said. More gameplay would have been good, but yeah, beggars can't be choosers. I would have just wanted to see a little bit. Is it going to be first person? Are they going to do third person this time? That kind of stuff just really gets me intrigued.
I think they actually came out and said afterwards it's actually playable in both third and first person. Yeah.
Great. See, I like that. That's more inclusion. I'm all about that. That's awesome. So, yeah, I think it looks really good. Obviously, sci-fi is a little more up my alley. I would prefer that. I enjoy those, and we'll talk about that more, what I like about sci-fi coming up probably.
Will we ever?
So, yeah, talk about flexing those guns. We've talked on our show as well that everybody, you don't spend $7.5 billion on a company to go, okay, let me share this with you. That's yours. You are going to make you money. And this is going to get a lot of people to buy Game Pass, or it's going to get a lot of people to buy Xbox consoles, or both. So it's well played, Xbox, well played.
Yeah, this I think is going to do very well. It's a very strong business move. It puts me in the position where I think I'm living the best life over here. You get a really nice gaming PC. Anything like this comes out, you play it on your PC, and then you have your PS5 sitting in your living room. And I think it's the best of both worlds. I can do everything.
It's fair.
But yeah, for Starfield specifically, space setting isn't my thing. I like sci-fi kind of genre, but I always like when it's sort of grounded more on Earth. Once it gets up into the space, I don't know exactly even what it is, but it doesn't draw me in the same way that, like maybe a medieval or a fantasy setting would. So this one hasn't been my highest anticipated game. But at the same time, Bethesda being such a big company and, like Elder Scrolls and Fallout, such huge series, I'm interested to see what they do, especially since I remember in the past with some of their interviews talking about the upcoming, Elder Scrolls 6 is inevitable to come out at some point. And I remember Todd Howard had said, like, we're waiting off because we don't want to just make the same game again. We want to wait until the technology is capable for us to really, like, innovate and do something different and something big and expansive. So I'm interested to see how that kind of attitude transitions into something like Starfield, which is its own thing. So it's not like it has to contend with, what's been done in the past and reinvent itself. But I think it's still gonna maybe follow that philosophy a bit. So it's definitely something I'll have my eye on, but I don't know if it's something I'm going to commit, like 400 hours to, because that's how those games end up.
Yeah. That makes so much sense, because for me, like, I'm a sci-fi guy as well, like definitely over fantasy. But to me, what puts me off of a lot of games is just, I mean, I'm a bit weird because so many games these days are like big open world RPGs, right? Like the Fallouts and the Starfields and the Bethesda games, basically, like a lot of those big RPGs. And I find a lot of them just overwhelmingly large, and it usually turns me off. So the settings really got me on Starfield, but if it's really, really big and I almost feel overwhelmed with too much to do, and it kind of can put me out of there. So we'll see if I get around to it, but it looks amazing. The next thing, speaking of looking amazing though, Halo Infinite has been shown off again. We've got multiplayer reveal and a single player trailer coming out this year for holiday 2021. I don't know if they put a date exactly on it, but we got a big multiplayer reveal. The grapple hook's still in there from the trailer we saw before. The graphics look a lot better than that first reveal trailer they did last time. So that's really nice to see, because I really want this game to hit. I've been out of Halo for a few years. I haven't had an Xbox since the 360. So Halo, Halo 3, Halo 2 back in the day as well, like I played a lot of. But I've kind of been out of the series since then, so I'd really like to jump back into Infinite and make that kind of my Halo renaissance, and I think for Xbox as a larger company too, they really need this game to hit. Obviously, it's the biggest franchise Xbox has, so or at least
absolutely.
So it's going to be important for them. But I'm really interested to hear what you have to say, Nick. I know you're a big Halo guy, so please fill us in about your Halo Infinite thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely big Halo guy. Absolutely. In our predictions episode, I was wearing my 20-year Halo shirt, so it had to bring me a little bit of good karma going on, some good vibes, and we got some Halo. So that was what I needed. I've been waiting to see the multiplayer for a while, because Halo multiplayer was one of the few multiplayer games that I loved and I still play. So it hit, and it looks like they've just balanced everything to a point where I'm just so ready for it. There's so much going on, and that's what I want to do in my shooter games. Is I just want a lot going on all the time, because you're never not having fun. Even if you're dying, you come back and there's more people ready just to go after again. So the vehicles, there were so many different vehicles that looked amazing. I can't wait to fly and drive and do everything with all of those. The grapple hook, I couldn't believe they left that in multiplayer. I figured they were just going to kill that off, and it was going to be in the game for something to do with the story, points or something, some plot. But they left it in, and they made it work. It looks so cool. They, grappling onto the, midair vehicles and just pulling themselves up to them and grabbing the guys out and chucking them and taking over the vehicles. Just hijacking midair with that thing was amazing. I'm pumped for some Halo, and it's free to play. That right there that's a game changer. This game, Xbox, you don't have to buy anything to play online anymore now. They finally changed that. If you have an Xbox, you can play any game that's free to play. If that's Fortnite, if that's Halo now, you're going to be able to play them all. And I had a conversation earlier where it's Battlefield's coming out, and Battlefield is going to be 128 player online. It's only multiplayer. There is no campaign, and it's going to cost you money from everything they've said. So that's absolutely backwards of where the world is right now. Everybody expects a multiplayer game to be free, and then you pay for what you want inside of it, microtransactions. We all know what that is. But why not include Halo in that? And I'm so happy that they did, because my kids are going to grow up with Halo, but now there's going to be so many kids out there that can play the games. Teenagers aren't going to be the only ones. We know what Fortnite's ran by. It's a lot of younger children, but finally they can give Halo what it deserves, because there's so many fans of Halo out there, and they're ready to get into it again and bring, my children, for example, and their children are just ready to be introduced to this. Halo's been gone a long time, guys, a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And oh my goodness, is it good to have Halo back and to see Master Chief and all of the beauty that he is now, because they did completely make this game look different. It was almost not quite as crazy as the Sonic movie, but the fans threw up their arms, and said, "This don't look good," and they were right. It's not all about visuals for me, as you can tell hearing me talk. It's more about gameplay. However, oh my goodness, why not take that icing on the cake? Because this game looks phenomenal.
That's a really good point. I forgot about how when they first showed, because they first showed off Infinite like a
I think it was
long
last
time
E3,
ago,
right?
like before
Yeah.
the consoles came out, and everyone, there was that one like grunt in the background or something that went around the internet, like, look how bad quality this
Yeah,
like
Craig the Brute.
yeah, exactly. Like he was infamous, and it didn't look good, and so it's nice because like you said, like Halo deserves to come out and be this massive, wonderful game because it's got such a history riding on it. And
Hmm.
James and I were talking the other day after we watched this presentation, and neither of us are massive Halo people. We never really owned Xbox and didn't have the games, but Halo is such a unique shooter. It doesn't feel like anything else. It really has its own like distinct gameplay style and the floatiness to it and the way the guns feel. Like it really is its own thing. And it's really funny. I played some Halo recently, just a friend owns it, and I've only played maybe a handful of times in my life. And it's funny that I would say, like, not very often do I sit down with a game and feel like, oh, I suck at this, like, hey, I beat all the Souls games, like, I'm a good gamer, like, I got good, but I sit down and I play Halo, and I'm like, I am terrible at this. I'm just getting my ass kicked the whole time. But even within one session of playing, it's like I can see some improvement, but it's just a testament to just how unique it is. And I really hope that this gets brought into next gen and it does really well. It looks fantastic. Like, not even being a Halo person watching this trailer, I was getting excited for it. So I really hope that like someone I know gets this and I can go over and play with them. But
Yes.
yeah, it genuinely was great, and I think I'm excited to see more they have of the single player, because this was obviously very multiplayer focused, and the story is obviously a big part of Halo as well. But if it's even half as good as what they've shown off for multiplayer, I think we can be confident that Halo's got a good foot in the next generation.
Yes. Can't wait. Can't wait.
Yeah, Halo's one of those that I see it, I recognize it, I know it's a good series, but it's just not one I ever really got into. And it's probably partially because I never really had an Xbox like you guys. But I played it with some buddies. Man, I got my ass handed to me all the time. You're not
Yes,
wrong. It's
it's
definitely a
hard.
unique kind of gameplay. Of course, they all owned the game, so they got massive amount of practice all the time, and I just jump in because I'm having fun chilling with friends. But man, I got my silver platter
You,
every time.
you got to know how to include your friends that aren't good in the game when you're Halo. That's when you just do all rockets on Blood Gulch and nobody cares what's happening. That's what you do.
It's just chaos and it
It's
levels the
fun
playing field.
and everybody's dying pretty much equally. It's so fun.
I remember always in Halo 2, you go on the smaller maps with like shotguns only. That was a lot of fun too.
Or the swords
yes.
only, because it's got those really
Swords
cool
only.
like energy swords. So
Swords
Yeah.
only was
Yeah.
fun.
swords only, yeah.
Yeah, looking forward to Halo, guys. That's going to be, by all accounts, an amazing game. And speaking of another game, at least that looks amazing, Forza Horizon 5 was shown off. These car games, whenever they're in trailers, whether it's Forza or Gran Turismo or anything else, they always have that amazing looking shine on the vehicles and the sand that kicks up. They're always like such stunning visual showcases, and this one's no exception. Taking place in Mexico. There was one shot during the trailer which paused on some mountains. I don't know if you guys saw this one, but it paused on the mountains, and it just kind of had I don't know if there was water running by or something. And if someone had looked at the TV, like I was watching it and I was thinking like, man, this is like a real shot of Mexico. And then all of a sudden the camera kind of pulls out and cars come by, and I'm like, holy shit, this is the way the game looks. It's just amazing.
Yeah.
The graphics on
Yeah,
Forza
that
5,
game is
so
beautiful.
yeah, so I mean, I'm not a driving game guy. Where Kate and I at least are pretty documented as not so into car games, unless it's Burnout. I will say, like, huge Burnout fan. But other than that, not a huge play for us. But Takedown, yeah, hell yeah, or Revenge also.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Anyway, I don't know if you guys have much to say about Forza other than for me, it's the graphics blew me away. But yeah, what about you guys?
The tech in this game is nuts. Like I was watching and I was reading about it. I can't believe how much technology they put into this game. they were doing something like 12K shots of the sky alone, and they did something like 12,000 hours of it, so that the sky is like as realistic as possible while playing the game through day-night cycles and everything. That's just ridiculous. No, do you think most people would care about the sky in a racing game? Probably not. But I think that's dedication and just shows their passion, and it makes me more of a fan, of everybody at Turn 10. That's just amazing.
Yeah, that was my biggest takeaway too, is just how much work. It reminded me a lot of listening to, like, the dev diaries from like Red Dead 2, and just how much work they put into making, like an accurate representation of the world, and making it realistic, and just going into those minute details that, like you said, like, it's not a requirement. Most people aren't even going to notice it, but it really does add something. And the game it's absolutely stunning. The way the rain looked, like, going down onto the puddles in one of the other shots, like, just absolutely gorgeous. Like, it makes me forget for a minute that I'm not a car person watching that trailer. But unfortunately, I remembered now.
Maybe I am a car person. What?
Yeah, I mean, the game is obviously super beautiful and the environments are great, but man, the cars look so good. I am very much a car person. It's one of my biggest passions. And man, the paint and all those cars look good. The flake looks real. The carbon fiber looks absolutely legit. I almost wish I had an Xbox so I could play this game specifically. I'm not going to buy it, pay $500 for the one game. But man, this one looks good, and the car selection is supposed to be huge. And if they end up getting my Trans Am in that game, they might pull me over.
That might be the straw that broke the camel's back.
Yeah, exactly. If my car makes it, yeah.
There you go. Well, Josh, I'm coming right back to you, because another game shown at this conference was Diablo II Resurrected. And I know you said a lot about Diablo being a big game of, your passion before. So tell us about Diablo II Resurrected.
Yeah, so what I love most about this game is it's pretty much just a visual update. It's a very true to form game. So the underlying game is still the old Diablo 2. They've overlaid just new visuals, new graphics to it, and brought it up so you can play it on a regular resolution, and whatever the 12 something by 700 something it was when it was first released back in 2000. Yeah. But they specifically left all the animations alone, so they keep a lot of the meta alive for online play. All the stories the same. They've added some quality of life stuff, like trading is a lot easier. In the previous game, you have a stash like Diablo 3 has, but it was much, much, much smaller, and people just had characters to carry stuff. Well, now they've added, a more modern, large stash so you can keep all your items. If you haven't played Diablo 2 and you have maybe played 3, it's more Tetris play. Each of the items occupy a certain number of squares, usually in a square rectangular pattern. But it's not just you carry those so many items. You actually have to play around with your inventory if you want to pick up a new thing.
Right, kind of like the Resident Evil style inventory, where you got to sort of slot it in nicely.
Yeah, that's a pretty good analogy. But yeah, this reason is why I'm pretty excited for this one. I love Diablo 2. I couldn't tell you how many hours I put into it because I played it for so many years, on and off, not continuously, but every now and then I get a strong urge to just play the entire game through. And it's got the classic skill trees, which are really good. All the classes are a lot of fun. Very excited for this game.
As far as Diablo goes, I have not ventured into the world of Diablo yet. So, yeah, 2 is apparently the one major of the franchise. Nothing's wrong with that one, according to everybody you talk to. So,
yeah, according to all the old fans, Diablo 2 is the golden child. I still very much enjoyed 3. I think maybe 2 might be a little bit better. I still put a ton of time into 3, though. So each Diablo game is very different. 1 is nothing like 2. 2 is not really much like 3, except for the isometric view. You're killing a bunch of monsters.
Yeah, I put quite a few hours into 3 myself. I had a couple friends that actually got me into it as my first Diablo game back when that came out. So kind of played the base campaign. I never did go for the DLC. So I liked it fine enough. I'm not always into the looter kind of genre, but I mean, Diablo 2 is just one of those legendary kind of games that you hear about. And back in the day when it was out, it just kind of passed me by. I didn't have any friends that really played on PC, and I think that was the only place you could really play it back then. So kind of just passed me by. But when this comes out, if I have access or I have a couple buddies that want to get into it or something, I could definitely see myself checking it out, if not only for that historical context and kind of just to see why it's so revered. But really happy this got announced for Diablo fans, though. And I think the last game to bring up from Xbox, at least for our rundown of the major stuff, would be Redfall, which is the next project from Arcane, of course, the studio behind Prey and Dishonored. And this was what they closed out the show with as well. I think the vampires is a really cool choice because we see so many games, this kind of horror genre goes towards zombies these days, and vampires is really something I think that is a bit of a neglected kind of mystical creature enemy, so it's nice to see something different. It's coming out next year in the summer, and it's 1 to 4 players as well, which is kind of cool. So I don't know if we really heard a lot about what type of game it is. Is it more of a story focused thing just with multiplayer, or is there loot? I'm really actually not too sure, but I think it looks cool nonetheless. The graphics are pretty awesome. The characters seem to have some personality there, so I'm excited to see more from what they have to show about this. But I wanted to get your guys' thoughts. Kate, why don't you go ahead?
This game looks cool. This game looks like, out of what we've seen from this presentation, the one that I will probably be most likely to buy, even though there's still a lot of questions. But the setting just looks really cool to me. Like, when I mentioned before, I'm not a big sci-fi space kind of person. I really like this blend of sci-fi where it's sort of more the mystical, there's a little bit of magic or occult stuff going on, and there's the tech aspect. So I really like this kind of setting. It looks really cool, and if it, I'm always down for a co-op game to come out as well. And the characters all look like they're, maybe gonna have unique play styles with a blend of guns and magic, and so it looks really neat. I'm gonna throw in, I know I'm a little ahead of myself here, but I'm gonna throw in that Stalker 2 and Atomic Heart were 2 other games they showed that have a similar kind of unsettling, atmospheric sci-fi kind of vibe to them that looked similar, but I believe those are single-player games versus Redfall looks like it's much going to be more like a co-op focused game. So I think all 3 of those kind of stood out quite similar, but Redfall has that multiplayer aspect which just differentiates it a bit, and I think this one has a lot of potential for me.
Yeah, I would double that on Redfall as well. I kind of felt like it might be a Left 4 Dead, Back 4 Blood style, but vampires instead from everything I kind of read and saw. I'm down for that. That's like you said, James, everything goes right to zombies. And, not to say that's not fun, but at the same time, you can do something different and still make it fun. And I think this could be really fun. I think it'd be cool if there would be moments where, maybe 2 of your team have changed to vampire, and now you're facing more and you have less on your team or something, if there's that kind of stuff going on in the game as well. But it definitely looked visually striking. It's next gen only from what I understand, so it's not going to be on the backwards compatible stuff. So that leads me to wonder what we're going to have as far as, all right, another next gen only, that's what we're out there to look forward to. So another one to look forward to for that as well. But it does look really, really fun.
Yeah, I definitely got some Left 4 Dead meets vampires from that trailer. I love that trailer, by the way. It had a lot of style. I think the characters were convincing. The voice acting was good. But yeah, they just run into the different, I don't know if they're individual vampires. They're different types of vampire types, but yeah, I definitely got Left 4 Dead vibes from that, with all how the vampires were swarming them and they were kind of running down alleys to escape and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's a great way to close out the show, at least showing another Bethesda type title, just another flex at the end there, just to throw it in for us. But I think that's the major stuff from Xbox. I mean, there was a ton of games shown. I think they had over 30 games at the conference, so obviously a lot more we could talk about. And just before we move to the next show, I guess we should just quickly, is there anything else you guys strongly just want to shout out before we move along here from Xbox and Bethesda?
It was so minimal, but Contraband, that one's just piqued a lot of my interest. It's made by Avalanche Studios, which has brought us Rage 2 and Mad Max. And the title Contraband with the trailer for that one, where it just kind of pans across and it's like just everything is just kind of decomposing, and there is a body like hanging out the bottom of a back of a Jeep in a garage. Like that just means there's going to be a lot of crazy stuff going on in that game, and it could be really, really fun. So, Contraband alone, we all know what that is. So it's got me wondering, we're going to be crossing borders or, evading, police or something. I can see that being a good time, made by that studio especially.
Yeah, it was a cute, quick teaser trailer.
Super fast.
James, I'm gonna steal this out from below you because I know you're super excited about this, and so
don't do
open it up.
Do it. Go ahead.
Well, I know we're both hype about 12 minutes. It showed up last E3, and we've just been waiting with bated breath this whole time. It looks like the writing is just incredible. The voice acting is amazing, and it makes a lot of sense once they revealed there's some really big names behind it. And I just feel like it's the kind of story that you're gonna get really emotionally invested in this couple's relationship, and you're gonna have like a personal stake in trying to save her. I think she gets accused of murder or something, and everything just gets turned upside down, but you only have 12 minutes and then everything resets. And so it's one of those kind of almost like a puzzle game of going back. You've learned some things in this 12 minutes, reset. Now you can do things just that little bit differently and see how that plays out. And
yeah,
I can't wait for this. This is probably, aside from Elden Ring, might actually be up there in like the games I'm most anticipating.
Oh. Wow, up that high.
Yeah.
Honestly, yeah. I'm right there with you though too, Kate. I've been anticipating this since we originally saw it. It feels like forever ago, and it's one of those games that just constantly pops up at different events. Like I feel like we've had 20 times we've seen this trailer. Obviously it's not that many, but we've seen a lot of this game like getting announced kind of at different events, and we finally have that date, which is super nice to see. I mean, like you said, yeah, the voice cast, Willem Dafoe, Daisy Ridley, and James McAvoy, like, come on, how can it get any better for a game? Like, usually you get one big name actor and that's kind of what you see, but this is obviously an indie game that still has the budget to bring in those kind of voices, and I'm just really excited to see the suspense, and the fact that it's only 12 minutes long as well. Like, in theory, like the story of this game is only 12 minutes makes me think it might be one of those, a lot of replay value there in terms of going through different ways, making different choices, or seeing what can happen if you just enact with the environment a little bit differently. So something that's that expansive, but also self-contained at the same time, just really, really interests me a lot. And I can't wait to try this once it finally releases later. Looks amazing.
Yeah.
Looks amazing, and I would highly encourage anyone who has not seen the trailer for this to check it out.
Yeah, and, I don't know how you haven't seen the trailer.
Right? Yeah,
it's been everywhere, but yes.
Right.
And it's on Game Pass, so that another reason for anybody with a PC or an Xbox. That blew me away. That got my attention because I've heard you guys talk about it on the show as well, and looked into it myself, and I don't know a whole lot about what's going on in the game, which could be a good thing. Could make it actually a little bit more entertaining when I play. But I'm definitely playing this one. You guys have hyped me just right now. I will be playing this.
I hope we didn't do you a disservice. Let's just say that.
But hey, if you don't love it, there was only 12 minutes.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
My bad. No problem.
Yeah, it does look really interesting how like minimalistic the concept is. So I'm really interested to see how much depth they can put into a game to where the concept seems very simple.
Yeah. Anything else you wanted to shout out, Josh, before we move along?
I just want to bring up Diablo II Resurrected again. I know it's coming out pretty much everything.
It's all good.
I just love how true to form the game is going to be. No crazy changes. It's going to be Diablo 2, released new.
That's what people are looking for, right? So why not keep it safe and give the people what they want?
Absolutely.
All right, guys. Well, let's move along to the Square Enix Presents conference, which, man, it started off strong, hey, and then after that, I don't really know exactly what happened with Square, but they're always a mixed bag. Sometimes they come out and they bring some heat, and other times you're just like, maybe you guys didn't have to have a conference. But here we are. They started off really strong, though. Guardians of the Galaxy was revealed. This, of course, was a rumored project that had been, tossed around on the internet for a while, but it's really nice to see the confirmation and another Marvel property being brought into what looks to be a pretty fun game. It's interesting that they made it single player with the cast of the the Guardians of the Galaxy being so diverse, and maybe people wanted to play as the other ones. But personally, like, I would say single player is a good thing for this game. It maybe has some, Mass Effect type of thing where you build a party, you can command them and give them the other characters different commands, and go through and play the Star-Lord that way. But it seemed like a really good showing. I mean, maybe not the greatest graphics in the world, but for what I'm looking for out of Guardians of the Galaxy, I would be 100% down for games like this, more Marvel games like this. And just I can't wait to play it. But I know, Nick, you had some thoughts on this one as well.
Yeah, I'm a huge Guardians fan, and I'm excited for this for sure. From the guys who brought us, IDOS, so we have Deus Ex and Tomb Raider and those guys going on. So I could see a Deus Ex vibe. You just said Mass Effect. That absolutely is on point with what I'm hoping this game plays like, because that makes sense. If we just take Mass Effect and make it kind of a comedy Marvel comic, like, why not? And I'm excited to see how they do the controls. Honestly, I made a note to myself that I've been playing a lot of Biomutant lately, and the control scheme that you saw on the screen actually looks a lot like the control scheme you have in Biomutant, which is where you would hold like L2 and you use the face buttons to select what you want it to do. And it looks like you do the exact same, except the face buttons are one of the 4 Guardians with you. So I'm looking forward to seeing how they make that work out. I know they can make it work because I've played games already where they do that, and it's seamless. It's almost like a weapon wheel or something, except it's just commands that you're giving individual allies. And I would love it if it's a Mass Effect open world in a way, like you can go from like a planet to a planet. I mean, you are guarding the galaxy, right?
Would be a dream.
Oh my goodness, wouldn't it? So I'm ready for this. Some new story with the Guardians while we kind of wet our palate a little bit until we get that third movie. Yeah, this is going to be fun. I agree with you. Single player was the way to go as well. I think if you kind of, I think you would dilute the story, or you would just change the feel of the whole game if you had a bunch of people in there stacked and silly while you're trying to play. Not to say that they wouldn't be able to do something, which we've discussed on prior shows before, where, give us a offshoot, give us a secondary multiplayer where we all can do, five player matches of some kind. But don't affect the story gameplay for that. But I'm ready. Huge fan. Let's go. October. Come on, October. Got a date on this one.
Yeah, this generally looks good. Guardians, my only really experience with them has been in the MCU. But they were one of the standout movies for me. I really like the atmosphere. There's just a ton of fun. I think this game is really going to come down to the strength of the cast of characters they've got and how well they play off each other. It really made me think of I think it was it Final Fantasy 15 or whichever one had the boy
boys
band.
In the cars.
Yeah, the boy band.
Yeah, just 4 guys cruising along the highway.
Just
you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. And I think like one of the things that people praise that game so well is that they were really like the charisma between the characters was really believable, and they really just genuinely felt like some friends that were hanging out, and they had a really good like atmosphere, and the writing was perfect to encapsulate what that group was supposed to be with their relationships. And I think this game, what's going to make or break is how well the writing is between the actual Guardians. But I think what they showed off, looked like it had a lot of potential. I like the part where you kind of have almost like a Telltale sort of style where the Guardians are bickering and you need to make a decision, and you gotta like kind of, okay, we'll take Rocket's idea, or actually like I'm siding with Groot on this one, or like, you guys are all idiots, we're doing this instead. And so I like that kind of like choices in storytelling, and it seems like you're gonna have kind of an impact on the group dynamic as well. So I think like this game I would not necessarily have picked out as being a top tier game for me just on paper, but from what we saw and the really interesting looking like biomes that you're going into, I think this could really be like a really fresh gaming experience, like something really different. And I think it has a lot of potential. I'm actually quite excited for it.
And another thing, there's over 60 different tracks that are all actual tracks. And it's actually a mechanic in the game. Depending on what track of music you play is a superpower that Star-Lord will use. I think that's amazing
That's
way to put
genius.
music into a video game. Yeah,
That's so
that
cool.
yeah, and you know James Gunn, the way he did the movie, the music was first and foremost, and he wrote the story around the music, and you just see that. I really hope there's a little bit of that going on in the game as well. So it really makes sense as it plays. But I mean, I know the song "I Don't Give a Damn About My Bad Reputation" is one of the one that played in the trailer and in the gameplay stuff, and that I thought was cool because he's just in there waylaying everybody, and yeah, the song fits. I mean, it was like that's awesome. So I'm pumped for this one. I think they're doing it right, and I'm just gonna let them take their time, and hopefully it comes out and it's amazing.
Yeah, I think take their time is very correct because I think the point made on the game Make or Breaking based on its writing is super accurate because the movies were almost universally beloved. And so the expectations on like the humor and the character dynamics is going to be really high. So I think that's going to be super important. And I think I have some confidence that the same people who did Deus Ex, which I played those games and I loved them. So that gives me a lot of confidence right there.
Yeah, I agree completely. And the other thing too to point out is I really like we're talking about the characterization of you know it's going to live and die on how these characters interact, but I also really appreciate how they gave the characters their own style for this game. They didn't try to rip off the MCU looks or, you know, maybe there's some comic kind of suits they're kind of replicating, but I really like how they did their own thing because I know for another Square game we're not going to talk about unless you guys bring it up later, but for the Avengers game, kind of that the look of like, oh, these are kind of like the MCU guys, but they're just a little bit off brand, you know? And I think that really soured a lot of people's initial opinions. So with this game, they just were like, you know what? Screw it. We're just going to make each of the Guardians look a lot different than their, you know, MCU appearance. So that's not going to set expectations to be, you know, exactly the same as the MCU. It's its own thing. It's its own Guardian story. And I think that only adds to the characterization of the game as a whole, which I think is a really good thing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I agree. It was a little bit different at first when I first saw Rocket, and he's got a little, you know, mic like a biker, like I don't know what you want, braid, you know, hanging off his chin, and I'm like, oh, what in the world? Okay, I get
love
this.
his
I'm
little
good with it.
braid. It's got a little Groot clip in it. It's adorable.
Right? Yeah, exactly. The more I looked at it, and the more I rewatched it, I was the same way. I was just like, oh, they've actually made sense of some of this, and you know, I'm good with it because anything Guardians, it doesn't have to be Chris Pratt and everybody. It's good right out of the comics or right out of someone else's brain, and I'm gonna enjoy it. I think either way.
Yeah. Well, let's move along, guys, to the next small piece of news we have here, because as much as we're kind of glowing about Guardians, I think maybe we'll have some different opinions on it's not only just Final Fantasy Origin, it's actually Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin. And this was the rumored game that was, you know, oh man, Square's working on a Final Fantasy game, kind of like a Souls-like from Team Ninja. And that sounded really appealing. And then, I mean, we don't want to judge a book by its cover, you know, before it comes out. But from the trailer they showed off of this one, I think this was maybe one of the roughest showings of something that was supposed to be significant over all of E3 this year. I mean, you had the combat just didn't look anything like Souls, to be honest. So maybe the leak was just a bit inaccurate. So maybe not fair to judge on that, but even still, I don't think it looked great. I mean, the main character's wearing what looks to be an Aeropostal t-shirt. And so, I mean, I just don't know if it really fits that Final Fantasy aesthetic. I don't know. It just didn't seem to have it, you know?
One thing I will say for this game, though, is that is a motivated main character. He is here to kill chaos, and he is going to remind you of that every 5 minutes. That guy has one goal, and he's going to kill chaos.
That laser focus.
Exactly. What's funny is James, you reminded me that this game was supposed to be the Souls-like rumored game, because after I watched the Square presentation, I thought to myself, oh, I guess that rumor wasn't real, and there isn't actually a Souls-like game. It did not cross my mind that this was actually what it would turn out to be. And you know, maybe that's more of a commentary on how, you know, just don't trust rumors, and you shouldn't necessarily set your expectations based off of that, because it's not like Team Ninja or Square came out and said there was going to be a Souls-like game and then didn't deliver. It's just that's what we'd heard. But yeah, this game just it looked a little bit edgy, and you know, maybe Maybe, if I was wearing a shirt with some flames on it and I got some cool glasses and I went to Aeropostale more often, I'd be into it, but it wasn't doing much for me.
Yeah, it definitely it looks like a hack and slasher more than a Final Fantasy game. Honestly, it looks like a Devil May Cry more than anything.
Mm-hmm.
Totally, yeah. I don't know. We'll wait. We'll have to see more on it. Like Team Ninja, they made some quality stuff. Like Neo, people like. So I mean, don't count it out. But man, it better have a Halo Infinite-esque turnaround from its first to second trailer. I'll say that.
Good point.
Yeah. Is there anything else you guys wanted to shout out from Square?
I was just blown away by Guardians, so I didn't see that coming at all. That was completely out of left field and very wanted, I guess I should say. Didn't know I wanted it, but I do.
Yeah.
Guardians is the big takeaway for me. They showed off some JRPGs, and I think if you're into that, you're into that. If you're not, then that's just what Square's forte is. But yeah, Guardians of the Galaxy is definitely the takeaway for me for this one.
Yeah, I'll have to echo the same thing.
Yeah, the only other one I wanted to even consider bringing up was, I mean, they're doing those classic Final Fantasy remasters. I've actually been weirdly drawn to trying Final Fantasy VI recently, so I mean, there's chance I might pick that up, but the thing is they didn't even show like what those look like or give any kind of date, so I mean, maybe that lines up with when I want to play, and if not, I just, I'll use an emulator. It's all good.
Right.
We got to talk about Nintendo next, because this is obviously how E3 has kind of come to a close. Obviously there's a couple other shows, Bandai Namco and whatnot afterwards, but Nintendo really was the big finale of E3 this year. And they explicitly had come out to say we're doing Switch software only, but these companies lie sometimes. There's always a chance that maybe they were going to show the Switch Pro, but they didn't, and so they set our expectations correctly on that by kind of at least mentioning that beforehand, because I think this direct would have been viewed as like much different if people were, expecting to see the console rather than not seeing it. But either way, we got some really crazy announcements in here, actually, more like blast from the past kind of stuff. And it started off with Kuzuya being announced from Tekken for Smash as the next new Smash fighter. So Kate, let's start with you. What did you think of the reveal of the next Fighter Pass character?
I thought they nailed this trailer. It was fantastic, both in terms of just the trailer's direction with him, chucking all the Smash characters off the cliff, which was super cute. But also just in terms of what they look like they've done gameplay wise. They are absolute masters at adapting characters into Smash at this point, and they've nailed it. I think 10 out of 10 with Kuzuya as well. I'm not a huge Tekken person, so it wouldn't have been my personal pick, but just the way they brought it in with the moveset carryover and even just the sound effects, and they've named one of the moves 10 hit combo, and they've been really cheeky with this one, but I think he looks like he's going to be a great addition to Smash.
Yeah, he looks really fun. The trailer really threw me off guard. I wasn't sure what was happening, and Ganon was being carried unconscious and then just chucked off a cliff. I was like, what the hell is going on? And like, oh, okay. But yeah, he looks like he's going to be a ton of fun and an absolute monster in the hands of somebody who knows how to use him. He looks like he's going to be rough to fight.
I've never been a big Smash Brothers guy. I have those. They have kids, but I have the game, and it's probably because I just suck at it, to be honest with you. So I love what they do with all of it. I think it's great, all the inclusion of the other characters, and it just broadens that for everybody playing it, not knowing who someone may be, and then they play their game. And I'm sure those games are really fun when you are good at them. Anything's better when you're better at it. But the trailer looked pretty sick, though. The way Josh explained it there as well was pretty dead nuts on, and that was intriguing. I'm watching it right now. But yeah, it looks crazy.
I was slightly offended when he chucked Marth off the cliff, because I've been playing Marth for well over a decade in those games. But that's my only complaint.
Everyone got their turn except for Invincible Kirby, that are sticking with that. No one knows exactly what Kirby's made of, but he's indestructible.
Yeah. Yeah, the interesting part for me about the reveal of this guy, I mean, I'm not fighting, everyone listens to the show knows like fighting games really aren't my thing, and Tekken's no exception, but the interesting part for me is Tekken's had a big history on PlayStation, and so I know there's all these rumors of wanting to get, characters from all different game companies out there, and PlayStation always is known as the one as like, we're not going to give our characters to play in crossplay or to be in something like Smash. So maybe this is Smash's way of working around not having access to the PlayStation characters, and maybe the closest thing we'll get to a PlayStation rep in Smash. So maybe just food for thought, I guess, on that. But
good call.
Let's move along to Mario Party Superstars, which is, man, I wish this was DLC for Mario Party on Switch already, because I bought that game and I've had a lot of fun with it. But I mean, it's more so because of the company, right? Not because the game itself was super strong. But this one's bringing back 5 boards from the N64 Mario parties. Everyone knows those are the best Mario parties. Over 100 mini games, online play from day one. Yeah, we don't have to wait 2 years to play this game online like we do with Super Mario Party. And I think if I hadn't already bought Super Mario Party, this would probably be an easy buy for me. But I don't know if I have another, $80 burning a hole in my pocket for Mario Party Superstars, considering also like all the other stuff we got to see. But maybe let's start with you, Nick. What are your thoughts, Mario Party?
Yeah, I'm the same. I have the game as well, and I even have friends who have the game, but it just always gets set to the side when anybody's over playing games together. It's never the choice that we go for. And it's mainly because of the game selection and so much of it being motion controlled. And this one here, from everything I've seen, it seems like they're kind of ditching some of the motion control stuff, so you can just have a good time, like on GameCube, and previous games before that as well. But I don't think I'll pick this one up either. It's just not something I think, maybe because of such a bad taste in my mouth from the current one, and I kind of feel like they should have made it DLC as well, because then that would have been something for people who already own it. I mean, Nintendo knows we own these console cartridge games because you have to, redeem points with them, but they just don't. They need to do something more for their customers on the Mario Party with the DLC stuff, and then maybe this is just a jumping off point because they are doing DLC on Mario Golf. They did announce.
Looks so good.
Oh yeah, Mario Golf will be my Mario game this year, 100%, and I can't wait. It's coming out very soon. So maybe they'll do something with DLC, but seeing as they're making an entire game out of this, I would doubt it's going to happen this time. So that's kind of a bummer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was my exact takeaway. And I assumed the whole trailer was DLC until the name came out at the end. And I was a little bit gutted on that, because it seems like the other games, like, Mario Kart got DLC, and, even Breath of the Wild got DLC. And so they have been putting that out, even though that wasn't, typically a Nintendo standard in the past. But I think that the latest Mario Party was really in desperate need of just having some extra content. So it feels like this is the nail in the coffin for it. I wish I could just exchange them, but I think a little heads up, little spoiler for what's coming up in a game or two, but there might be a different mini game that I would have my eyes on instead.
Yes, I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah, this one I'll probably be skipping out on. I mean, I've had fun with Mario Party, but I've never at any point felt the need to actually own one.
Well, that's the thing, right? If you got friends that have it, like, it's not necessarily something you need to buy if you're interested in playing, because it's not like you'll play it by yourself, usually.
Exactly.
Right.
I mean,
let's pick up 4 of my own controllers, have a party by myself.
We'll say usually. There's maybe someone out there that's done it. We don't want to shame you or anything, but it's a multiplayer game for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Speaking of multiplayer, though, the next game we have to talk about, single player, of course, Metroid Dread, which was an amazing announcement. Probably my favorite announcement from this direct. Just seeing another 2D Metroid after, especially with Mercury Steam killing it on the last one, and they're back again for Metroid Dread. And Dread, actually, I didn't really know this, but I've kind of learned it before we came to start and record this podcast. Dread was originally announced in the early 2000s and never came out, and just kind of has been floating in the ether, and finally made an appearance here again. So very, very cool. Metroid Fusion is my favorite Metroid game. The horror aspect of it really drew me in a lot compared to some of the other games. Not that I don't think there's really too many bad Metroid games. They're all pretty good, but the setting is really nice. So seeing that they're kind of going for more horror style stuff again, maybe not horror, that's the wrong word, but tension, so seeing that with Dread is really cool. I think the graphics look flashy. That new slide mechanic will probably add a lot of variety compared to previous 2D Metroids. So the big question for me is, is, I mean, there's so many Metroidvania games that come out these days with Ori and, Hollow Knight and all these different ones. Like, Nintendo has a lot of big shoes to fill to match the quality of some of the other companies doing similar type of games. So I hope it can live up to how good some of those are. And I'll definitely be picking this up upon release. But maybe Josh, you're going to go ahead. What are your thoughts on Metroid?
Yeah, I'm really excited to have another Metroid game in like the Metroidvania style. I mean, it's obviously one of the games that helped coin the genre. You're not wrong. There are some big shoes to fill because there have been some amazing Metroidvania games that have come out. But I'm really excited. I like that it's has like a 3D style and like a 2D format. I really enjoyed that. I also played, Fusion. I had that game as well, and it has kind of a similar thing where this thing you can't kill, but you can only escape, and I'm excited for that extra tension in the game to, just not just explore freely, but kind of be wary of what's behind that next door. I think it's going to be a really cool mechanic to play with, and I'm very excited overall. I hope we see a little bit more, and that'll definitely be a pre-order for me.
As far as Metroid goes for me, with it being a 2D but still slightly 3D look, this whole look of it just really got me going for sure. And it's a mobile, so being on the Switch, I can take that thing with me, and that's a big draw for me on these games. I love to play the old school stuff on the Switch on the go, a quick grab and play, and that's how I play some of the Metroids now, is when I just pull out the Nintendo Online and play some of the older games. And I'm ready to do this. This looks fun. It makes me want to revisit a lot of Metroid that I missed.
Yeah, this game genuinely looks great. I don't know if this was rumored or what, but I know everyone was kind of hoping for Metroid 4 Prime, and there was some silence on that, so it's good that there's Metroid to fill that void. And I think almost even in a weird way, the 2D Metroid appeals to me a little bit more than the Prime does, for whatever reason. I think maybe just having a little bit more of a smaller contained experience interests me more, because I'm not the biggest Metroid fan. It's just something I've never really played, so that smaller kind of game is maybe a little bit more of appealing stepping stone to try it out. And I do really like the concept of that, like, portal turret / demogorgon following you around the whole time.
That's such a good way of describing it.
That's exactly what it looks like to me, and I think that's cool. I like the kind of that sort of horror adjacent atmosphere they've got going on. So this maybe interests me. I might check it out.
Yeah, well, everyone, if you're interested, buy this game, because we need Nintendo to know to make more Metroid, because they do not make enough of it, and they really need to start. At least that's my opinion.
It's Metroid
you are
now.
Not wrong.
It's F-Zero next time.
Yeah, right. Or maybe our next game too. WarioWare had a new showing. WarioWare Get It Together. Seems very interesting, coming out September 10th. Kate, I know you alluded to it earlier. You are a big WarioWare fan, and for some reason, I come so close every time, but I just can't beat you on that damn skiing game, which I hope is not included in this one, so I actually have a chance. What are your thoughts on this?
I am excited for this. I love WarioWare. I don't know what it is about these games, but they're just so chaotic and so fun to sit down, have a couple drinks, and just play some WarioWare. And maybe it's just the bias of always winning that makes the game better for me. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is about WarioWare, because in something like Mario Party, James, you beat me quite often, and so it's not just necessarily just the little quick mini game style games, but there's something about WarioWare. If there's ever an esport for WarioWare, I'll go pro. It just clicks, and this one's cool. It's got a co-op mode, which is new for the series as far as I'm aware. They're usually a single player story or a competitive mode. So there's a co-op, which is an interesting idea, but I think where this game shines is really just the head-to-head versus mode, and letting that person come so close, giving them a little bit of hope, and then just crushing their dreams. Just destroying them with some little micro mini games. So this looks like a lot of fun.
Yeah, I agree. I'm a huge fan of the game as well. I've played them since the very first ones came out. When I worked in retail, I was pals with the Nintendo rep, and she knew I liked games, and she would always bring in the games before they even had a sticker on the cartridge, and just let me check them out. She was given all these demo things from Nintendo to kind of just play and just get her idea of them. So if she had to answer questions, she'd just sneak those over and let us play them. It was awesome. And I had no clue what was going on, but it was so funny, and it was fun, and it was quick, and it just kept you on your toes. And it grew into just a thing that me and my wife just loved to play together and just see who could beat who. Like you were mentioning, even on single player, we just do score and get the furthest, and that was just a lot of fun. And we actually just played the trailer and everything for the kids today so they could see it. And yeah, we got 2 more on board, so here we go.
It's hype. We got to share the WarioWare love. It's just how can you play something like WarioWare and not have a good time, It's
Right?
just one of those experiences.
If you can't, you really got to get it together.
Right. Yeah.
Oh man, I feel called out.
Oh, we got a fan to make. I'll do my duties,
we
guys.
got a hater.
It won't take long. It won't take long.
So I only played the first one that came out on the DS way back when, and I had a little bit of fun with friends and stuff, but I could just never really get into it for whatever reason. It just didn't do for me.
Yeah, I think definitely it's like multiplayer is the way to go, like the single player stuff, I guess on a handheld maybe wouldn't be quite the same as sitting down with like the GameCube version or something to play with friends. Yep. But that's what's kind of nice about the Switch.
The console is definitely the way to go. And I will say that I remember that DS one. I had it too. And I think it came out really early in the DS's life cycle. And so they really wanted to use the like gimmicks that the console had. So like a third of the games were just like blow into the microphone. Oh, yes. And I remember playing that game and getting like legitimately lightheaded because of all the like the blowing you have to do. And so that one I'm not as fond of, but like the GameCube game and the actual console ones where you sit down and play like co-op, those are an absolute blast.
Yeah, the GameCube.
So maybe
Yeah, I think you just didn't pick the best one, but don't worry, there's still hope for you.
It sounds like I played the subpar game, so maybe I ought to give it another chance.
Yes.
Well,
yes.
Yeah, 100%. And so speaking of subpar games, let's move to a game that obviously is not going to be subpar. The big grand finale of E3, we'll call it. Breath of the Wild 2 was shown at the end of the Nintendo Direct. Coming out in 2022, we saw a very beautifully animated trailer. I mean, what else can you say? It's more Breath of the Wild. They showed some, different aspects of the game that are new. I think Link has some kind of flamethrower, and he also had an ability to kind of float through the floor at one point, which was kind of cool. It's taking place a lot in the sky as well, which is pretty interesting, especially since they're doing, I think, that Skyward Sword remaster coming out in the next little bit as well. So, I mean, I'm definitely not the Zelda fan in this group, so maybe I'll turn it over to you guys. I know, Josh, you had some stuff to say about Zelda, but I'm very interested to see your guys' opinions on this trailer.
Oh my gosh, finally. It's been since 2019 since we've heard literally anything about this game.
It's happening, Josh. It's happening.
Cool. I can't believe it.
We've been willing this into existence. It's happening.
Yeah. I like to think I'm the cause.
There you go.
I like to think so too.
But yeah, there's some cool thing. It looks like you like reverse gravity and like came up through the floor like you just fell into a puddle, which I thought was kind of neat. There's a lot of like sky territory. I was really wondering what they were going to do with this new setting, just because they put so much time and effort to make such a gorgeous environment for Breath of the Wild, and so large and expansive, and like things to find at almost every turn still. So it seems like they're doing something actually pretty dynamic. Like it still seems like you're in the first game's Hyrule, which is really neat. But I'm curious to see what else besides just floating like land that happens. I don't know if there's going to be like a mini dungeon situation, like the Guardians were in the first game. If there's going to be like the new dungeons to where it's going to be a little bit more platform oriented, so you don't like fall into the sky. I don't know. The new stuff looked really cool. Like you said, looked like Link had a flamethrower. He's doing new stuff. They showed a glimpse of, I think it was Link's arm being like, has like a gauntlet of some sort there. So I don't know if this can be like the new mechanic, like the Sheikah Slate was in the first one. Lots of questions. Very excited for new content though.
Yeah, hey, the arm, from what I understand and have read and looked into, is actually prosthetic. So it's a lot like Sekiro.
Sekiro
So
crossover confirmed.
right.
Ooh, that does sound super cool though.
Yeah, so his right arm is not his arm. So something has to have happened, or maybe something is, I don't know, maybe affecting him. Maybe there's like a virus or something going on that's like changing his body or something maybe as well. But that whole ability you mentioned with the water droplet that goes up through the sky, and then it feels like there's like time travel involved or something in time that you can actually control. That's really one thing in the game, in the original Breath of the Wild, you had no control over. I mean, you could control pretty much everything except that. And I wouldn't be surprised if, as ambitious as they're getting with Zelda and Breath of the Wild, they're going to have to do something to top it. And we've talked about that on the show before. It's like they're going to have to do something major to pull all those people in again and keep them going. And the fact that you're going to be in the sky, that's another one. We mentioned like Avatar. I think there's a lot of games that are going to be doing this. They're using Skyward Sword as kind of maybe like a way into that to get people used to the mechanic. Maybe even control of the wind this time around got me thinking, because he's like a free fall at one point. It's like, well, something's either going to catch you, or you're going to have to be able to control your glider with the wind itself, because how are you going to traverse from because I mean, Hyrule Castle is in the air, like 1,000 feet in the air, maybe, I don't know, it's way up there. So how are you going to get up there, and how are you going to traverse throughout what's up there? Because if I had to guess, I would say at some point there's going to be other pieces of the world maybe falling apart and rising into the sky, like Hyrule is being destroyed, taking to another level by Ganon or something, because it's still, he was still very, very much alive. So spoiler alert.
Despite getting thrown off the cliff earlier in the Smash reveal, he's still alive.
Right. Yeah. That pissed him off. He's back.
Could you imagine? It's like, oh, sorry, Breath of the Wild 2's been canceled. Ganon's actually dead.
Sorry, guys. I know we led you on, but tough luck.
We did not confirm or like confer before this trailer, so
right.
What a shame. I think Breath of the Wild's an interesting one for me, because I'm in the middle of playing it right now, but I'm kind of getting a unique take on it because I'm playing it co-op with a friend. And obviously it doesn't have a co-op implementation. It's just we're passing the controller off, and when we come across a puzzle, it's solving it together and talking about what kind of approach we should take. So I think I'm having a very different experience with it than a lot of people did, because a lot of people, like, it's a very intimate game, and like, even the music is very minimal, and it's very much about player choice and freedom. And so playing it co-op is nice in the sense that, like, a lot of really funny things have happened, and we've kind of created a story together, which might have been, I might have missed out on some other stuff just playing solo. But it's also kind of, taken away some of, I think, that really like intimate experience that a lot of people have. So for me, Breath of the Wild 2 really needs to show some new things or some different innovations to get me excited about it, because I think if it's just more Breath of the Wild, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's a great game, and I think a lot of people will be happy with that, so that's fine. But for me, I think there might come a little bit of a fatigue with that kind of just, you're out in the world exploring and kind of, like self-motivate to get to the next place. And
that's fair.
The story is quite minimal, which for me is, something I kind of like look towards. And when I'm exploring, I like to kind of, pick up little pieces of lore to put together, or, meet new NPCs. And the game definitely has that. But I think the focus is much more on, like, how do you want to maneuver around the world? And, here's all these gadgets, and they can do a million different things and be really creative in a self-expression kind of way, versus, like, you're learning about a world. And so I think Breath of the Wild was just not perfectly my style of game, even though, like, playing it, I definitely see why everyone fell in love with it. So I'm
How many of the Guardians have you guys taken?
we've done 2, and the
Okay.
Guardians I've really enjoyed. I love that kind of like old school Zelda like dungeon style.
Yeah.
And I think that's great. And so I kind of hope Breath of the Wild kind of, maybe is a little bit more stuff like the Guardians, something that's maybe a little bit like they were quite short. And the shrines are obviously little bite-sized bits. So I
Yeah.
kind of hope that there's a little bit of like, classic Zelda, but also keep what was amazing about the first game. And so I'm interested to see how different it feels to one. And I think that will depend on how I want to play it or not. But I definitely intend to keep playing Breath of the Wild. I'm enjoying it, but I think 2 games might just be a little too much for me.
Yeah. So it sounds like what you're saying there's, and if I think about it the way you're talking about, I've never thought of it that way. The Guardians in the game are the only point of story in Breath of the Wild. All the rest of it is just the world. You just do it on your own. So
or doing those pictures where it like shows a little flashback scene. When
I get the memories.
Go and find your memories. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, if you do really think about that, there's not a ton of story in Breath of the Wild. It's more of the experience with the story in it. And yeah, if they could take the Guardians, either add more of whatever that was into something new, or expand that story part of the Guardians into more things, so that you're not feeling like maybe like you're just kind of doing stuff just because. Just from the standpoint of what it sounds like you're looking for in a sequel.
Yeah, exactly. And I definitely like acknowledge that it's a me thing. I don't think that's like a criticism of the game in general. It's just I like a little bit more, something to like sink my teeth into versus, just let your imagination run wild. So
Yeah, just a bit more direction, right? I think that's ultimately what it comes down to. I think this game has a chance of having that, honestly, especially because, I mean, they've got Zelda was shown as a character in that first trailer. Whether or not she's playable, I think still, people will speculate. But the fact that she's there, I mean, that's someone for Link to interact with. The fact that maybe they could do more stuff alongside the Guardians like they did in the first game, something adjacent to that. Maybe they will have a bit more story this time, but I mean, we'll definitely get a lot more content revealed to us about this before it comes out next year. So we will look forward to waiting and seeing what that ends up being. But guys, just before we move on to the end of the show here and get past Nintendo, was there anything else in the Nintendo conference that we haven't yet talked about that you guys really wanted to bring up? Maybe Nick, you go ahead if you have anything else.
I'm actually just excited because they're still supporting and continuing the Fatal Frame series. I figured at some point somebody was just going to drop that and it was just going to just die off. Those games, the first game, I think I just moved out on my own and I tried to play it, and no. Those games scary as hell. So to see them being continued, and they're a legit scary game. It's probably gonna make me play it, honestly, seeing as it coming on the Switch. And I'm really surprised Nintendo's pulling some more stuff. They're actually remastering it and making it look prettier and bringing it to the consoles. So that's one I could see myself actually picking up again to kind of test my gumption a little bit more.
And hey, it's on the Switch. If worst case scenario, you take it out broad daylight, play like in a park, lots of people around.
Like an ice cream truck goes by, it's all happy. You're all good.
You're okay.
Reading my mind. Yep, I'll be fine.
That's awesome. The other game I want to shout out is Fatal Frame I had down. I know, like, I'm excited for people because I know there's been like a lot of rumors about if Fatal Frame will ever come back. So that's great to see. I got to shout out Danganronpa Collection. It's coming to Switch. I'm not going to get it because I've already played those games, and because they're the murder mystery kind of thing. It's tough to replay them knowing how everything ends up in the end, and I already know who did it, but I think Switch is a great place for them to just pick up and play and take on the go. And I just got to shout out Monokuma. He's still around. We love him.
We love Monokuma. 100%. Yeah, that was one of mine too, Danganronpa Collection. Like I've done the same as you. I've played through all of them, and I think it's honestly one of the best visual novels out there for anyone that's interested in that genre. It's a bit niche, right? But it's just cool to see the collection being exposed to more people and put in a showcase like this. So that's really cool to see.
So I have a question on those. As a non-player, is the Decadence one, is that like the whole collection?
It is, yeah. It's the first three. It's 1, 2, 3, and then there's a board game spin-off, I guess, that was a mini game in one of the games. I never actually checked that out. The only one it's missing is there was a spin-off. It was more of like a third-person action kind of thing. I forget what it was called now, but it was very much a spin-off, and it's not included in this, but honestly, not needed to be played for sure.
Yeah, the three main trilogy is what you're looking for, and this has it all. And I like too that they said it's like that collection you can buy physical, or you can still buy them individually. On
very
the
nice.
eShop if you just, maybe you've already played the first one, you just want to buy 2 and 3, whatever. But
that's smart.
It's nice to have that collection as well.
Yeah, I've heard a lot about that one, and that was when the PlayStation Store was going to be shut down. That was one of the ones that everybody said to get, and this might be the time now because I've heard nothing but good about those games.
Yeah, couldn't recommend them stronger, honestly. If you have any interest, just go for it. You'll have a good time.
Excellent. Good to know.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think mine might be the Shin Megami Tensei. Oh my gosh, I probably butchered that name, but
I think you did pretty good.
No, I think you nailed it. I think you almost that's good.
Oh, all right.
Yep.
But it looks kind of interesting, and it's an Atlas game, and it very much shows that it's an Atlas game. So with the creature design and kind of the concepts and the artwork is very, very much Atlas. The main character reminded me a lot of the main character from Persona 5 and very much her style and her stature. But I'm not sure if I'll pick it up, but it seemed really good, and Atlas definitely knows what they're doing with the story and with turn-based strategy games. So I'm not sure you can go wrong.
Yeah, that's fair. That one stood out to me just because of all the Persona I've been playing recently. And so I feel like that's the kind of game I wouldn't maybe have looked into too much detail at before, but after playing Atlas's Persona series, it's like, oh man, maybe I should check this out too. Like they clearly know what they're doing.
Yeah, it's funny. I actually played Shin Megami Tensei 4 back on, I think it was on 3DS or something, but I never really got into it at the time. And then since then, Persona 5 has become just literally my favorite game of all time. Listeners would know that. Talk about it all the time. And, seeing this game and after having the Persona perspective, like you said, it definitely draws me in more to check out Shin Megami Tensei again. So, this is definitely what I was going to shout out to, so I'm glad you brought it up. The only other one I wanted to mention just quick is I'm glad to see Advance Wars come back. I know it's kind of niche, but people have been looking for that, so I'm really glad to see the first 2 games get the remaster there. And but I think overall Nintendo just killed it, honestly. It was a really strong presentation.
They did.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they did very well.
Yeah, so we got a bit of time left, guys. We got maybe 10 minutes or so. So maybe we can go through and just shout out some of the smaller stuff that showed up at other conferences we didn't get around to talking about. So maybe we'll just go in a circle here and bring up a game or two, depending on what I'm looking like. Kate, you want to start us off? What's something you wanted to bring up?
Yeah, I've got a couple here, but we'll start with one. It was from the Wholesome Gaming showcase, and this absolutely embodies the idea of wholesome gaming. It's called A Walk with Yaiya, and I hope I pronounced that right. But the developer came on with it, little indie game, and he actually had his grandma with him to show the game off. And the concept is basically you're going around the neighborhood taking your grandma for walks, and she's just recently had a bad fall and injured her hip. And so as you walk around the neighborhood with her, you just sort of talk to her and you're building her confidence back up. And it's just this really wholesome game of almost like a visual novel kind of thing of you just spending time with your grandma. And it was such a nice little, it was just a 1-minute presentation this guy gave, but he brought his grandma along, and it was so sweet. And I just felt very emotional watching him present this game. And I just want to play it and think about my grandma and just have a really good cry.
Oh man, I gotta see the trailer for this.
Yeah,
that is such a wholesome time.
It looks lovely. So I feel like those nights sometimes you're like, I want to watch a movie that makes me cry or just be sad, but I want to play this game and just feel emotional and eat ice cream and be a mess.
Go ahead, Josh.
One I thought was interesting, indie game called Dark Deity. Looks like it an old 16-bit Fire Emblem. I really liked the style of it, the how they did the 16-bit look. And I haven't got into too many Fire Emblems, but this seemed like an approachable way to get into that kind of style of game. Very much each character seemed to have its own amount of movement with its own like special moves it did, and even had like the little cutscenes for like the combat still in the 16-bit style. But like the conversations were still in more of like an anime style art and with full dialogue. So I thought it looked pretty interesting from the brief look that I got from it.
Yeah, that one did look good. And I will say, like the Fire Emblem comparison, I actually think I like the 16-bit better when Fire Emblem did that versus changing to the 3D. So
Yeah,
I kind of like that, like
Okay,
nostalgic
okay.
Fire Emblem vibes. Yeah.
I gotta check that trailer out too. I didn't see that one either. What's going on?
Why you gotta watch every
gotta go
single
back.
one?
I gotta go back. What about you, Nick?
One from me is on the indie showcase. They did have one, Fallen Aces.
Hell yes.
That was surprising. I mean, just like a mobster feel, but first-person shooter, comic book, everything just had this different feel. I don't know. It was weird. It was like it was all and colored by hand with crayon, and just a really cool visual style. I'll play that game. I know I will. So even if that's on PC, I'm gonna play that game somehow. So yeah, that says a lot. But it just looked like a lot of fun. It reminded me almost of Doom from like the original Doom, just the way the character moved. It was kind of like stomp, stomp, stomp,
Okay.
as he's going.
100%.
And just the kicking, it was like maybe like 4 frames for kicking. There wasn't a whole lot of 100 frames per second or anything going on those games, but yeah, it looked really fun and new and different, and that stuff catches my attention pretty quickly. So I'm looking forward to that one, Fallen Aces.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one too. The graphics kind of reminded me of Archer FX. If you guys have ever watched the show with
There you go.
John H. Benjamin, like the characters really remind me of that.
Yeah, right. Perfect assumption. Yeah, that matches.
Yeah, it looked really good, and the opening monologue too. The guy was like, "Playing with fire, you always get burnt." It's like some classic mobster kind of noir look. Yeah, super awesome, super awesome. I wanted to shout out one as well from Devolver actually, which was Demon Throttle. And I thought Devolver did a great job on their conference. It was, skirted the line between maybe some cringe humor and some actually funny stuff. And I think they did a good job. But this is the next game from Doinksoft, which sounds like a ridiculous name, but they're the ones that made Gato Roboto. And this game was just, it had a lot of style. It looked like an NES game. It was one of those, forward scrolling kind of games, like Raiden or those kind of bullet hell plane games. And you're having to dodge a lot of enemy fire while you're taking them out as they're coming from the top of the screen. But I really enjoyed the heavy metal music that was being played in the background, and just the retro kind of graphics really were nice. And then of course you got to shout out the infamous quote where the guy at the start, he's like a cowboy and he's like, "That demon kissed my wife," or something. And like that's how the trailer starts. Like, and presumably you're just going around to rescue this guy's wife with your friend because she's been kissed by a demon. And to me, like, that's all I really need for a story for a game like this. Just it looks like a lot of fun. And so yeah, I'd like to shout that one out.
So I definitely gonna have to look that one up. That sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah. The trailer is great, even if you're not going to play it. But we're getting short on time, guys. We got 30 seconds left each. If there's anything else you want to go around one more time and give a quick shout out to, now's the time. Kate, we'll start with you again. Go in the same order. Quick 30 seconds, and we'll see what we got.
30 seconds. This is the best game concept you're ever going to hear in your entire life. Get ready. VR showcase. And they've got a new rhythm game. It's called Unplugged. And the idea is that, you want to play Guitar Hero, those games are great, but they're so clunky with those instruments. So it's a VR rhythm game, but you just play air guitar. It's so good. The notes pop up just like a Guitar Hero kind of thing, but you just play the air guitar in VR, and like it is such a simple but smart concept. And I just made a note. I'm like, I'm playing that game 100%. Like, it's genius.
Sounds sweet.
Man, we covered everything I think I was excited for from E3. I don't think I have anything else to really shout out.
Fair enough. A good conversation, then. That's all that means. I had one last shout out that I wanted to give really quick, which was to Life Slide, which was also at the E3 Indie Showcase. It looks to be kind of a take on the Flower Journey type stuff. And so that was really cool because, those games are the nice, kind of short, you played over a weekend type of game. And this one looked like it just had same kind of deal, but a lot of speed. And so you're flying the paper airplane around, collecting some stuff. And it just looked like a good time. One of those kind of chill games, but you have fun with for a weekend. So that's what I wanted to bring up. And yeah, I think that's E3, guys.
Well, my final shout out is going to be Loud Thumbs podcast. So
nice.
Yeah.
You gotta follow us
That's a good one.
at Loud Thumbs on Twitter, and check us out on YouTube, Loud Thumbs. And we really appreciate being on the show. This was a lot of fun, and we hope to come back on some more and have you guys on with us. This has just been a really good time, and looking forward to growing our shows together and just keeping on. So
100%. Yeah, it's been a pleasure to have you guys on our show. We are great conversation. We hope to have you guys on again. Honestly, it's been a lot of fun. So once again, guys, thank you again for joining us so much. To everyone out there listening, please go check out the guys at Loud Thumbs. All their information is down in the description of the video or podcast, wherever you're listening to us. As for Circles and Squares, we're back to our regularly scheduled programming in a couple weeks' time. We will have a regular episode out for you guys, with Kate and I breaking down the latest in PlayStation news, games, all the good stuff. I'll have my final Ratchet and Clank review, so check out that when it comes to your podcast feed. Of course, you can always connect with us on Twitter at CNSPod, or you can send us an email at circlesandsquarespod@gmail.com. Get in touch, send us your opinions, your questions, anything you want answered on next show. We will be doing listener mail as per usual. So until then, we will see you on the next one. The intro and outro music for Circles and Squares was produced by friend of the show, Matthew Chan. Interlude music is from Scott Gratton of the Free Music Archive. Our channel art was created by @unreasonable on Twitter, and our brother Alex is the designer of the Circles and Squares logo. Thank you all for listening and supporting the show.